computer. So this is now registered, recorded, sorry. So we could start with a couple of presentations, and I will start with myself. My name is Victor Homocea. I'm one of the CTA with that would be Citrix Technology. What's the word, guy?
Advocate.
Advocates. Yeah, thank you. It's not. I don't know. I'm saying advisors every day. So it's advocates, which is a role in the Citrix community for guys which are advocating Citrix technologies to the world, to the community. That's a volunteer-based role, so you don't get anything, maybe just some cool t-shirts now and then, some discounts to Citrix Synergy, which unfortunately is canceled until 2021, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, and some other stuff, but you got to meet a lot of cool people, and that's something which is the essence of being the CDA. And this eased up a bit, I think. Also, the application to CUGC, or they came together, and I wanted to do something like this, like a Citrix community before the CUGC was launched some years ago. I think it was 2015, if I'm not wrong, or 16 at Synergy. We have officially a LinkedIn Romania Citrix group. That's unfortunately not so active, but it was active some years ago. So this was in my mind for a lot of time, and here we are. Because we have a live event, or online event, sorry, we have advantages, but also disadvantages. We have the advantages, and that's something which I would like to start with, is that we have awesome speakers like Guy, like Bas and Ruud, and the other people which are speaking today, which have international experience, and they played with a lot of cool stuff, and you can learn something new from anyone. And yes, the disadvantage is that we don't meet together face to face, and we can't drink beers, and something which would ease up the pain, I think, for the speakers. But hopefully that would be possible in the future again. And if anyone wants to say something, you can say it now. I see we still have people joining. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, so the agenda for today is that we will have, so it was a bit mixed up with Citrix, with the sales engineer from Citrix, which is allocated for Romania, and that's something that's usually happening. They're also getting involved because they're spreading the word to all customers and all parties which they are connected with about this community, and that's helping the community to grow. And with everyone joining, everyone could have their own sessions, and I'm inviting everyone that's present today to if they want to present something based on their experience. And this is something really neat about this community, is that it's focused on the technical side, not too much on the marketing. We still have sponsors, and we rely on sponsors in order to get things moving. And the sponsor for today, the only one, is Control Up, and I do hope that you have some experience with Control Up until now. If not, we will have, if I'm not wrong, Yevgeny joining from Control Up, which is a technical marketing, if I'm not wrong. technical person inside Control, they will show us a couple of neat features inside their products. And yeah, in the future, we'll also inviting some other sponsors to join. And hopefully we will have the pleasure to welcome some new folks during that. Until then. So I have a presentation because as I mentioned, somebody from Citrix, the sales engineer for Romania, was supposed to come with a session. Something happened with him, unfortunately, and he got locked with the customer. And I had to fill up that session. So here's a session about app layering, and I hope everyone is at least knows what app layering is. If not, we will share this information today here. Welcome, Gabe. I see Gabriel just joined. But before that, let me see if that will work. I'm not sure how. I never done it. I have a quick poll. If you imagine that. Yeah, when you're sharing the screen, the poll options disappear. Interesting. Maybe I will figure it out later. So again, welcome everyone. This is about app layering. I'm not sure how many of you know about or have experience with app layering. I do hope that everyone knows what app layering is. And before going a bit more into detail, normally the CUGC is about the local community, something which I was supposed to say at the beginning. That's what I planned. And the local community here in Romania is has their own language, that's Romanian. Unfortunately, we decided to take the path of the English language. I think it's, and I hope it's not a problem for anyone which joined the meeting. Most of us are working with foreign customers and speaking mostly in English with them. But I'm really sorry for today that we will not be speaking in Romanian. As I mentioned, the advantage of having an English online speaking session is that we will have also some other folks joining. And except Guy, I think everyone is not English native, so thank you for that. Going back to our session about app layering, I could go into detail with app layering. This is just a quick session for the people which do not know what app layering is. And we have an agenda as well. I will tell you how this app layering, or better said, Unidesk story started some years ago for me. And I will tell you what app layering is, what app layering can do for you, and how does it work. And if we're having enough time in this 30-minute slot, I will show you also a demo of my environment, which is unfortunately had to be rebuilt last week for this because it got corrupted during some VMware upgrades. Yeah, so how it all started for me. In late 2013, I was searching for cool VDI solutions to that would make my life easier in building and managing large-scale VDI. Back then, I was working for one of the biggest, or maybe the biggest private company in Romania, which was the largest Eastern European oil and gas and energy company. They had the two headquarters in one in Romania, the other one in Vienna in Austria. and we were planning to build a large VDI that would be split in two, one for normal office users and the other one for something which was called back then the extraction and production guys. Basically engineers, oil engineers, which were using very large and very powerful power workstations from HP. I know we have somebody from HP today. So they were like desktop-based servers that would be replaced by VDI in the data centers. And that would have been possible back then with a newer technology than this Unidesk, which was NVIDIA Grid, which was just popping out. And I saw a couple of advantages for us back then to go to that technology. So this would, in the end, just help in that large picture. This technology would also provide an easy way to update, roll back applications and patches on the fly, something which it wasn't possible back then, and maybe also not have a large footprint on the storage. If you remember well back then, not everyone had flash storage. Flash was extremely expensive. And if you were buying flash, most probably you did not buy a lot of flash because flash capacity was something which was again a problem. In the end, the scope was to build awesome VDI. So I found out about a tool or a product called Unidesk, which I was quite skeptical at the beginning. If I'm going back to the console, to the management console, which would have required Silverlight from Microsoft and only one type of browser, that I got a bit confused with that, but I moved on. Overall, I would say that the tool was pretty awesome back then, and every day we found out a couple of nice things about it. So I was speaking with a couple of people on Twitter, and that Citrix would need to buy Unidesk because it would complement the VDI product that they had in order to deliver a better product, a better Citrix product. And yep, that happened in 2017, if I'm not wrong. And it was an amazing feeling when I was telling, after some years of telling everyone, guys, this is really important. This is a really nice feature that you need to take a look at, and you need to test. Citrix bought it, so it was interesting to find out that when they bought it, they didn't ask for more money to get it to the customers. So they bundle it in the Citrix virtual apps and desktop. And desktop. Yeah, Cătălin, want to say something? Nope. So everyone stay on mute, please, if you can. If you want to raise questions, be happy to do that, but try to stay on mute as much as possible. When I'm being asked what app layering is, imagine that, and this is a nice comparison, imagine that layers or all layers are a pack of cards, a deck of cards, and when you compile the needed layers into an image, that would be a good hand. I have a royal flush here, but hopefully you will not you'll not tend to create a royal flush app layering because that would take some time. That thing doesn't exist in app layering. You don't have the perfect recipe for everything. And that's coming from a person which unfortunately built with VDI for quite some time. So in IT in general, you don't get to do something perfect because there are high chances that in 1 week your work will be gone. So try to do as best as possible, but perfect doesn't exist. So again, going back, there are 3 types of, or even 4 types of layers, which are split in different categories. You have the operating system layer, which contains the Windows image, the operating system that stays at the base for the other layers. This technology is not to be confused or compared with app-V or ThinApp, which are 2 packaging and isolation technologies. This is not doing any type of isolation. This is just bundling application, operating systems, files, registries, and different settings into the same image. So the concept is a bit different. The good thing is that if you want isolation, you can create a layer for that specific app-V or ThinApp. I would just focus on app-V for now. And you could bundle that into an app layering layer. That would be probably a bit overwhelming from a I don't know, management perspective, but that's working. I mean, if you want to do that, it's definitely working. Then moving above from the operating system layer, you have also the platform layers, and the platform layer usually is just 1 per operating system. You have core things or core components that you would need for that image. If you consider that this is actually a VM, you would require the hypervisor tools inside, so the drivers. That's where you would put the VM tools or the XEN tools in the platform layer. And this is a best practice. If you need to put, and definitely, I think that's a definite not need, to put the VDA in a layer, that's I think it's a best practice, if I'm not wrong, to put it in the platform layer. And there are different best practices that I would invite you to use. I don't have a slide here with different best practices. I try to keep this as slim as possible. But if I get good feedback after this session from the community that we should continue with presenting app layering in the future, we will definitely have more sessions. So there's a lot to discuss about app layering in general, and if the community wants it, there's no problem in offering that information. Then moving above, you would have the apps or application layers. That's where you would install different applications. There are the way that you choose in order to create a layer is extremely simple, I would say, but it does require some time. I'm not sure Guy maybe or the other persons present in this meeting would have more experience with automation. The last time I checked, I think it was last year, Citrix didn't have an SDK for this. There was a community SDK, something that would help with automation, but it was really basic, I'd say. So automating layer creations is something which would take some amount of time. It was even slower some years ago, but the Citrix made this a bit faster. But the key takeaway from layer management, I'd say, when you create update layers, the best thing that you can do in order to have a faster response or to work faster with the AppLayer console and the whole environment, basically, is to have the fastest storage possible. And why I'm saying that is because you work with VMDKs at the base. So in the system, the app layers are actually VMDKs for vSphere on VMware hypervisor. That would be a VMDK. And for the other systems, their own proprietary disk image. Yeah, and it's you would imagine those disks are pretty large, and basically it's a copy or expands, write a lot of information inside. So it's in my lab I have the fastest SSD, which is NVMe. I have a 2 terabyte, which I paid like a small fortune last year. I just started using it about 6 months ago when I managed to find some time to install it on my small home server. Moving on, about the advantages or how app layering can help me. App layering is providing a way to compile images out of different layers containing different systems, system settings, applications, and operating system patches. It reduces the cost of maintenance for that for the VDI images. I said VDI images, and maybe somebody who joins would say VDI image. That's one of the advantages of app layering, is that it offers the Citrix Hope. It offers a way to maintain just one image. That's really awesome. But the thing is that I've seen during my tenure with in different VDI environments is that you do have one app layer image, but that's one for the operating systems. And you might even have customers right now which are using Windows 7. So it's one image per operating system, actually. Another advantage is that it offers Citrix admins a way to be more efficient and more agile by being able to update the right components or roll back to the working one when something goes wrong. This happens, I wouldn't call it on the fly, but it's way more easier than uninstalling applications inside an operating system and then try to do something with that image version update. There are a lot of advantages when it comes to app layering, because you have layers and each layer can have different versions, and you can mix different versions of different layers and create an infinite amount of possibilities to test. So in case you have issues with different, I don't know, builds of the image, you can create different testing scenarios in order to see where the actual problem is. And you would realize that, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, you did an update in a specific application layer for, let's say, Office. and something broke back then. So you could go exactly at that moment, open that layer, or just delete it and create another version of it, and you could move on and fix the issue, which again, without app layering would be quite hard to do. So you would need a person like Guy to actually pinpoint the issue with different methods that he has. Simplifies management of, it simplifies the management of the operating system and apps, and allows you to compose and or compile, as I like to say it, and manage multiple images and layers as required, as I mentioned before. Other benefits that we have is that we have a faster application packaging. And I think we could say easier as well. It depends on how you were doing before that. You have high availability, and we could discuss about this high availability in the future. For large or very large environments, there are components that you could work with in order to make this high availability even more available. Because right now the biggest issue, I think, it's with the ELM, and we will go in the architecture in a couple of slides. But there are ways to create a really high available scenario or architecture in order to cope with this. Real-time application delivery. And this is achieved with another type of layer, which I forgot to mention. There are user layers, and in the user layer, you can allow the user to put his personal stuff. It's by default, all layers are read-only, but that user layer would be reads and writes, of course. And yeah, I mean, you could have also elastic layers, and these are the ones which are attached in real time during logon for that specific user session. And you could deploy app packages to any infrastructure hypervisor or cloud. Not sure if I mentioned, but this is compatible with different hypervisors. It's not the one from Citrix. You could get Nutanix hypervisor, the vSphere, so or the Zen server. So it just doesn't matter. You could work with app layering with different type of hypervisor, and that's something really nice. And by the way, something which probably I shouldn't focus too much, app layering, I think it's still available for other type of VDI infrastructure, not from Citrix, from other vendors. So basically, it just image management. So you can use that image to, I don't know, work with different VDI, like the one from VMware. And it would eliminate managing multiple golden images, as I mentioned minutes ago, because it allows you to create from a multitude of golden images just one, and you can juggle with the different layers inside that those golden images. Moving on, it would reduce the cost for the app management, by the way. This is a graphical representation which I took from Citrix around app layering. So how this works. So once you log into the Citrix, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse. Let me use the laser pointer. So you log into the management console, and That's actually a thing, a component, is the main component of the app layering, and it's called the Enterprise Layer Manager. That's an actual Linux appliance that you deploy in your infrastructure. It's a VM. It could reside on any kind of hypervisor, and as I mentioned, it's a Linux based, and it would present you this console that you would use to configure different connectors to different file shares or hypervisors, so we can work in the same time with different hypervisors. You have the option when you deploy a new image, when you compile a new image, to actually export it to the hypervisor of choice at that moment. So if you have like 5 hypervisors and 5 types of infrastructures, you can export it to the needed one, which is, I'd say, pretty cool. Yeah, so this is the first step. Then, as I mentioned, you target the hypervisor. Then a packaging machine is being generated in when you create a new layer. That's an actual VM. It's a temporary VM that you use to either do the needed configurations in for that layer that would be propagated into the final image, or you install some applications, you do some configurations, and there are some best practices around stuff that you can do inside a packaging machine. And then when you finish all the preparations, you installed everything and you configured everything, you go back into the console of the ELM and you finalize the layer. That would trigger a set of events, and it will shut down the machine that you use for the layer preparation, and it basically takes all the steps that you've done. It creates a snapshot and it does some differencing based on the initial snapshot that it was taken when the packaging machine was created. So it's a differencing type of event, I'd say, or action. So yeah, and then you go back into the console. When that's finalized, you would get a new application platform or operating system layer or layer version into the library, I'd say, and you could use it for different stuff. Moving on to another way of showing you how layers and what these layers are. As I mentioned, you have operating system layers, you have platform layers, which might contain different hypervisor tools or the VDI agent, which is the VDA for us. You have application layers like Office, and different other business applications, and then you might have elastic layers. I think we're missing the user layers here, but I think those are deprecated. I don't want to say stupid things here, but I think those are deprecated. So the elastic layers are actually one of the coolest things that you could use. Is that as I mentioned, during logon, user logon, these layers can be attached on the fly to that machine. If you have a non-persistent machine, you can play with these elastic layers. I haven't seen too many customers of that I work with using elastic layers because they usually are pretty picky. But yeah. There are ways to use them. You can't use elastic layers with applications that would require some kernel-based drivers, and we're talking about, for example, print drivers. Can't use them because you would actually need a reboot of the operating system to load those drivers. Moving on, really quick. What if some users require more or less in comparison to different users? You have different options around elastic app layers and user layers. You can also use different technologies to mix the layers, but there are options to play with this. And if you would I don't know, would like to see something, or you would love to hear a couple of statements coming from some colleagues which are using app layers in app layering in enterprise environments, I can ease up the pain, and I can put you in contact with some people. I would move on really quick because I need to hand over the stage to Guy. The key takeaways here are that app layering technology provides a faster, simpler, and more cost-efficient delivery for real-time application and image management. The ELM server elastic layer management is the primary component of the app layering architecture, and it's basically coordinating all the communication, hosting the admin console, and managing all the layers and layer versions. By the way, that's not a component which should be taken in consideration from a DR perspective, but it would be good to ensure that you have backups of the machine and all the layers. The app layering console can be used to create layers, publish layered images, and configure various system settings. And the app layers can be used, as I mentioned, for a multitude of provisioning methods and VDI systems and hypervisors. And with this, I would like to thank you for attending this session. And I will hand over the stage to Guy, which will have a session around PowerShell. So let me see if I can make him a co-host.
I was just going to say, if you haven't looked at app layering yet, keep your eye on Microsoft MSIX, because that's going to be a replacement for App v5, a replacement for MSI installers, and through a capability called App Attach, it's going to, if nothing else, shake up the app layering market.
Yeah, I don't think we will see too many changes in the app layering, but yeah, that's the MSIX is something really new that we should take in consideration. Yeah, you just tell me if you can share the use the share feature. Okay. Awesome.
Yep, you see my slides?
Yep.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much. Let me start my PowerShell countdown timer, so remind me. Oops, no, wrong button. I don't know how to use my own tools. Just a nice little countdown clock, again, using PowerShell, also stopwatch, and then you can make notes about what you did at a certain time. So it's quite handy for looking back at, rather than scribbling things in a book. So that's what I tend to do with PowerShell. I tend to write things that I find useful, and if other people do, then I like to share them with the community as well, which again is part of these various community award schemes. Okay, I'll share the slides afterwards. So really the idea for this is to show you the sorts of things you can do with PowerShell for Citrix virtual apps and desktops, or Zen App and Zen Desktop as we call it, provisioning services, that sort of side of things. Obviously I've only got half an hour, so I can't do a massive amount. So it's going to be a mixture of why PowerShell, how do I get over the barriers of PowerShell, because that's what I see a lot on my travels as a Citrix consultant, which I've been doing for over 25 years now. Is that people go, oh no, PowerShell's a bit hard, or oh that was an error, and I got a bit scared and I ran away. So it's going to be a mixture of why use PowerShell, how to get over the hurdles that people have sometimes with PowerShell, and then what can we actually do with a few demos, of course. Now, what you'll find, certainly, if you've got Citrix virtual apps and desktops, with provisioning services, with Active Directory, with VMware, with some sort of app layering or profile management solution, suddenly you've got 6 or more different consoles that you need to look at. And a lot of the time, it can be quicker and easier just to use PowerShell. And I don't mean just write a script to do it. I mean just sit on what you would do normally in a CMD, a command line. But in PowerShell, look at sessions, kill sessions, get a look at your apps. Anything which you do a lot of, very easy to automate. And do it regularly. I'm sure you've got better things to do than produce reports for management, or who's used the system in the last week, or that sort of side of stuff. And the beauty of PowerShell is very easy to get data out of SQL, or I'll show you later how we can do some director, Citrix director type reports by getting data out of the same way the director works. All the common formats. So CSV I do a lot of, so you can then just send it to people and they bring it into Excel and filter and sort and do all the sort of exciting things people do with reports. So we can use it interactively or with scripts, so best of both worlds. Come on, I'm not good with PowerPoint. PowerShell, yeah. PowerPoint, no. Tab completion, it just makes it so much easier, particularly for old people like me who forget things. What's the command for this? Oh, okay, let me just go and see what that command is. What commands are there for networking? What commands are there for getting applications? What are the arguments? Oh, I'll just tab. Or something not a lot of people know is let's get me a PowerShell window. I've got just 1 or 2. Floating around, as you might imagine. This is actually the new Windows terminal, but to all intents and purposes, PowerShell. So if I want to find out, what are the commands have I got for networking, then I can use something like get command. So I want to get some networking. So the idea of PowerShell is it's a verb, as in a doing word, and then a noun. What do I want to do with it? So get network. So I could say get -- network. Show me all the network commands. Yeah, quite a few of them. But then, I can see how many are there. Okay, well, I'm going to do some, let's say I'm going to do some VMware stuff, even though this is a Citrix session, just because that happens to be what I'm looking at. I can say, let's say, get help. I totally failed to copy and paste that. But again, not very good with this sort of stuff. No, it just definitely doesn't want to do copy and paste today. Great. Don't you just love Windows 10? So again, I just have completed that, and you can do a couple of different things. You can do a -show window, which just pops it into a little ASCII window somewhere eventually. One would hope. Oh, there she is, which tells us the parameters, gives us example command lines, gives us examples. So there's lots of help there. Or depending on the vendor, you might even be able to get away with minus online. But as we see there, it doesn't always work. Let's pick another one. A Microsoft one that I use quite a lot. No, not a Microsoft one, a VMware. Again, doesn't matter whose it is, and there we go. It saves you having to use Google or DuckDuckGo or Bing if you're feeling really brave to get those commands. If you want to get more, if you want to know, well, which module does it come from? Well, I can just do a get command on it, or we can start to use what are called aliases, like GCM. Get command. Is that that's a bit difficult to remember? Well, don't use it then. Just use get command, and that tells me, oh yes, it is in VMware. So it's very easy to get help and support. It is actually cross-platform. So PowerShell 7, which is the latest and greatest version, actually runs on Mac and Linux as well. And there's a lot of scripts out there. So you see at the start, there's my GitHub repository's probably got 80 or 90 scripts on there now for VMware, Microsoft, Citrix. But before you run any script in your live domain with your thousands of VDI endpoints and your tens of thousands of users, make sure the script is actually going to do what you want, and it isn't accidentally or deliberately malicious or damaging. And before you know it, you've lost 10,000 users out of AD and everybody's screaming because you can't work. So have a test environment, and even if you can't write a script line by line, just vaguely understand what it's doing, because it can do a lot of good, but it can also do a lot of harm as well. Fame and fortune, well, maybe I'm a slightly famous in the community for PowerShell. I certainly haven't made my fortune yet, but hey, it's early days yet. I'm only 53. Okay, so again, struggling. Why PowerPoint don't you do next slide? You really do annoy me. Yeah, I'll just struggle to get there. So yeah, I was talking about these sort of common barriers. First one, very typical. You get there and it says, nope, the execution policy on this machine doesn't allow you to run it. Well, set execution policy. Just be careful, because you can set the scope, so it's just for, if I'm doing it on a custom system where PowerShell has been disallowed, then I'm not going to change it for anyone other than my current process, so my PowerShell session. But you could change it for the whole machine if you've got administrative privileges. What I like to say is, leave them as you found them. They're not a great security mechanism because they're very easy to circumvent. Old versions, people tend not to update their PowerShell version. I mean, the latest, if you like, built into Windows is 5.1. We're actually on 7 at the moment. 7's a bit controversial, and some new features in there, but there's nothing I've seen which actually it gives me enough courage to go to my customers and say, hey, upgrade please. So I tend to use 5. I only assume there's 3. In fact, some of the scripting I do for controller, the performance monitoring people, I get shouted at if I assume version 3 is there, and version 3 is 7 or 8 years old. 2 is pretty painful to work in. To find out what version you've got is enough, just $PSV. And again, I'm tab completing, so all PowerShell variables start with $. That tells me I've got version 5.1, backwardly compatible, and versions of .NET, common language runtime as well. Generally, if you write something that needs a feature of, let's say, 3, PowerShell 3, then you put a hash requires minor version 3 at the top of your script, so the script would error. Although you can work around it if you want to do it that way. Spaces in script names. Oh, don't we just love that? So let's see how we actually run a script. Let's have a look. What have I got in here? So dir, again, it's just like a CMD. Well, actually, dir, again, is one of these aliases. Forget child item. So you can see I've got some script names there. So get Citrix OData. Just happens to be a script. Again, we'll actually come back to that one later. So let's put that in the clipboard. Awesome. My clipboard seems to be not working today. That's fantastic, isn't it? Let's see if that's just a feature of the all new singing and dancing, much hyped Windows Terminal, or whether it's actually Windows 10 being awfully nice to me. Right, I'll pick a different file this time, not that it really matters. Oh yeah, so it's Windows Terminal that's at fault here. So quick bit of power troubleshooting there. So if I try and run that, get what? Well, yeah, the spaces. So I need to put quotes around it, don't I? As we know. So does that script just echo its name out? No, because that's what we call a string literal. Yeah, that's how you do hello world, which you've probably seen in various programming languages. Yeah, so if you actually want to execute something, which is in quotes, you need to use an ampersand, and you'll get used to it. But it can't find it. Why can't it find it? Because by default, and this is a security feature, it doesn't look in the current working directory. It'll only look in your system path. So if I start tab completing, there it is. Notice it's put / at the start, yeah? So I have had problems where I've given scripts to support people and they say, oh, there's an error, I think it might be this. And you look at the actual red bit, so the actual error, the bit that normally sends people away screaming, and it says, can't find the file. Yeah, because the person didn't actually know how to run a script. They didn't put the / at the start, or you can put a full path, yeah? So that's at least running the script and telling me I haven't got enough parameters, which is fine. Or the other way I can do it, I could use a full path. So again, I'm tab completing like you could in a legacy CMD. Notice it's put the full path in, but because the space is in, then it's put the quotes around it. If you don't have spaces, don't put quotes, but just get used to putting quotes in. It's very easy. Yeah. Once you know it, once you've been bitten by it a couple of times, you'll never fall down that hole again. Relative paths, because if you think, okay, I'm just going to write it to this folder, but what if that folder gets changed, or certain things will run relative to your profile folder rather than your current working directory. So always know what folder you're going to be in. Do you need to run it elevated? Not everything needs to run elevated. A lot of the Citrix stuff doesn't, simply because it looks at who you are and therefore what permissions you've got, set via Studio or via PowerShell. Parameters, well, we saw that here. Parameter set cannot be resolved. So when you define and write a script, some parameters are optional, some are what we call mandatory, and they must be specified. So if they're mandatory and must be specified, then let's see, does dir defaults. So let me try and think of a PowerShell command that requires get item properties. Notice there are mandatory parameters, so it's prompted me for it. So that's okay if you're using it interactively, but obviously in a script, that's not going to help because that's not very meaningful to a user. So make sure you understand what the mandatory parameters are. And if you don't understand what they are, go and look at the help, go online. The information will probably be there already, and that's a great thing because there's lots of scripts using the commandlets that you're going to use probably already. I see this so often. People see some red text and they just run away screaming. Somebody will come to that and go, look at all that red. It's terrible. I'm doomed. I don't understand what's going on. Yeah, read it. And if you're in the business of writing scripts, make your errors understandable. So again, when I tend to write for control up, I'll say, yep, we had this problem. Have you installed this module? Is this file present? Or perhaps I'm checking and I say, oh, only version 2 of PowerShell is installed. Please install at least version 3. So you help people, guide people. If you're writing scripts, make them readable. So don't use these abbreviations like I've already shown you, like DIR and GCM and PS and LS. They're great for typing interactively, but they can make it difficult to read. And there's a lot of people who say, oh yeah, let's do it all on one line. I have this massively long line of PowerShell and think it's really clever. But if you can't understand it, you're not really helping anyone. Although sometimes if you then split that into 10 lines, it can run slower and take a lot more memory. So there's a trade-off. So if you do it in one line, you have to do it in one line. Put lots of comments in to explain what you're doing. Okay, so what have we actually got available to use? So let's get onto some Citrix specifics, because I'm about halfway through already. So what have you got to use? Well, what have you installed? And what do you want to do? So I tend to have a jump box, a box with all my consoles on, AD tools, VMware as well, because you might have a Citrix infrastructure, but it's probably running on VMware. It might be running on XenServer, Hyper-V. Again, just make sure you've got all those things available. Again, install-modules, quick way to get things installed these days. And on a dedicated management machine. Ideally, you shouldn't be running your scripts on delivery controllers, storefronts, PVS servers, etc., because that reduces resource available for actually servicing users. All of these can be remoted to a machine securely. PowerShell had a feature in version 1 way back when, 13 or more years ago, called snap-ins, which was replaced in version 2 with modules, but Citrix only in the last few releases have actually started producing modules. So a lot of the time we add these PS snap-ins. And whilst there are a number of different ones, the easiest way is just to add them all, to be honest. I wouldn't say that with VMware. Let me just bring over my one of my 2 jump boxes, actually, because again, I've got different things, as you'll see. So let's just minimize all that gunk if I can. There we go. So if I just want to load the Citrix, I can literally do Citrix add PS snap-in, that's short for. Again, if I was doing it in a script, I would use that, and I would use name parameters as well. The other thing to note with later versions of PowerShell, you can tab through the arguments like that, or you can use control space. and it'll show you them all. And then you can actually use the cursor keys to go through them as well. Oh, also as well, let's just put some stuff in here. Editing command lines, control backspace. Did you know we'll take a line out at a time, or a whole word out at a time, or control home, delete to start of line, control end, delete to end of line, all those useful things. So I just done a Citrix start, and then what have I got? Well, let's do GCM get command, or I can just type it in. Minus module, because now it sees them as a module, and then I can see, look at all those commands that I've got from Citrix. Again, notice they are verb, doing word, and then what to do it with. And that's very typical. There are things called approved verbs in PowerShell: gets, sets, new, remove, all the sort of words you'd expect. And then I can pipe that through measure object. How many are there altogether? 1,852 Citrix commands. And yes, I don't know all of them at all. I've probably only used 10% of them, if that. But they're there if you need them, because they're over a rich set of features. So that's got the Citrix stuff in there already. Why? Because I've got Citrix Studio installed on here. So this is a typical jump box with Citrix in there, VMware, there's PowerShell interface. I've got Avanti in there. I've got Microsoft RSAT for things like AD, PowerShell module. So I can, if I want to write a script that uses all of those, then I just run it on this one machine, and this is where I can run my scheduled tasks from as well to fix stuff when I'm happily in bed asleep, dreaming of not tech, hopefully. So we can see what modules are available. We've already seen get command, and there's various ways of seeing what commands there are. I mean, maybe we can even use get command for other things, as in, so what commands are there for certificates? Notice it's putting X's and MSCs in there as well. Yeah, so I can actually figure out what I've got executable wise if I need to. I always forget the thing for disconnecting, command line executable. So I just do a star dis star.exe, and there it is, ts discon. Yeah. So a lot of pattern matching there as well. Get help we've seen, and then a phrase we use a lot, you may have come across, read the manual, as in use the help that's there. You look at other people's script, looks at blogs, GitHub, etc., etc. There's a lot of resources out there. It's only if you're using something sort of bleeding edge, groundbreaking, or very, very niche, as in not many people use it, that you might struggle for information. Because the best way to start writing a script is to look at existing script, understand it, and modify it for your needs. That's how I started writing in BASIC in 1980, when I guess some of you were, not quite born. Okay, so if we use the Citrix virtual apps and desktops, look, I'm using all the right terms, given it's a Citrix event, then, well done, guy. Oop, I'm really not very good with this PowerPoint thing, am I? I must re-implement it in PowerShell. So I've already said this, don't run on infrastructure unless you really have to. So PVS, for instance, if you've got a local data store, for your images, then you probably have no choice, because if you do it remotely via, dollar shares, then it's going to be slower. Admin address, so that I can remote things. Now, the Citrix documentation does say that once you've done one miner's admin address, you don't need to specify it again. I've had problems with that, so I specify it every time. So, for instance, if we come back over here, let's have a look at in fact, I don't need an administrator. Again, I run with least privileges wherever possible. Don't log onto my laptop as an admin at all. So I'm sensible and secure like that. So let's have a look at what machine, what catalogs I've got. Oh, so much choice. So let's do a get broker cat. That actually comes back. Why? Because I've actually already connected. So if I'd get a new PowerShell prompt, so I just have it, I always sit in a folder where if I create rubbish, I know where to go to clear it up. And look, we've got persistent history as well, even though it's a different process. And I can even search that with Control R. So if I was searching, well, what's one for machines? Control R, I can search backwards. And as long as I've got persistent profile, then I've got thousands and thousands. I think last time I looked, I got nearly 10,000 lines of history on my laptop. And in fact, there we see an admin address already. So let's switch to catalog. Failed to, okay. Oh, red, let's run away screaming. No, let's read the error. Failed to connect to backend server localhost. Well, this is my jump box. This isn't my delivery controller. Hence why I do mine as admin address. Pick one of my 2 delivery controllers, which are different versions. Try and remember what the name is whilst talking. XADDC02. And that will then remote to it and say, well, yeah, I do this a lot in PowerShell. I get all this information. What can I do with it? You can pipe it through select. So you could say, well, I just want to see what the names are. And I can just see the names. Or what I tend to do is use something called Out Grid View, which is awesome. It's OGV for short. Why is it awesome? That's why it's awesome, because I can present a lot of information very quickly in a GUI form. Yeah, that looks quite an interesting field, doesn't it? But then what I can do is all these columns are sortable. I can decide what columns I'm going to show. I could put filters in. So let's say machines are physical, because that's the one I can just happen to see there. Say machines are physical is true. And I've filtered it already. And this is built into PowerShell. Yeah? So where I used to export things to CSV and bring it into Excel and filter it there, you can do this wherever. This is from PowerShell version 3 pretty much is there. So you don't need to do it on a machine which has got Excel, which might typically not be a jump box because of Office licensing and so on. So there I'm already getting it. And of course, what I could then do if I want to get that and give it to somebody, or if I want to say, oh, what applications have I got? Or how many applications have I got? Again, this is just my lab test environment, so there aren't many. In fact, let's pass it through something called measure. I've got 7 apps. Yeah, you've probably got hundreds in your environments. Most of my customers do. But what I can then also do is I could say, well, let's just have a table. And I tend to do this for a lot of customers I go to, just so I've got a reference of what it was. So configuration-wise, when I was there, export CSV, we say no type information, and then just the name of with a meaningful name. And if we go and look at Fred, it's a CSV file. Unless you're in Holland, the Netherlands, where CSV files are semicolon delimited, I found, which is interesting. Although, guess what? Export CSV has a minus delimiter parameter, so you can actually change it. So that, again, this is sort of falls back into the reporting stuff that I was talking about, where it's very easy to produce reports. Plus, you've got built-in SMTP email sending, so you could set up a scheduled task on your jump box to send a list of all your published apps, or your users, or your sessions, or connection failures, or whatever you want, daily, weekly, monthly. Other things to be aware of: max record count by default is 250. It will warn you. So if you say, give me all the current user sessions, you've got 5,000 user sessions. By default, it will only return the first 250. So just give it a minus max record count. As long as you've got plenty of memory, just make that a very large number. And all the commandlets we're seeing here also work with cloud. So if you want to do cloud stuff, you don't have to learn a whole different set of parameters. But what you do have to do is to use a different SDK. So here I've got the Zen App and Zen Desktop Remote PowerShell SDK. So this is a different jump box. So I'm doing a get broker catalog here. Again, I don't use mine as admin address because what I've already done is set up effectively a secrets file with which I need to protect, but is secure on this machine at least, which gets passed through. So I don't have to interactively pass credentials like you would if you were logging onto Citrix Cloud. And this is actually from the CTP Cloud. It's not really production, so I don't think I'm giving away any information I shouldn't. So it's same set of commandlets for doing stuff in cloud as well. A few gotchas, well, not something as gotchas as things that you can't do, mainly for security. But 90% of what you do is there already in cloud. So once you know how to do on-prem, you can do cloud. PVS is a little bit little bit funky. First of all, until 7.8, which is quite a long time ago now, there wasn't even a proper object-oriented SDK. PowerShell, everything is about objects. All these things here are that this is an object, and these are properties of the objects, and you can set them, filter on them, all sorts of things. Whereas before 7.8, I think it was 7.8, you had a command line utility, and you had to parse text, and it was horrible. And there is a snap-in built in called PVS PS snap-in, but 11 commandlets, it's not a lot of use. So what you tend to do is to do this import module where you've got the console. So you can see it's in the console folder, there's a DLL, and that gives us 178 commandlets. Again, can be remoted. I can do a set PVS connection from my jump box and connect and do things on PVS. So I've got a script out there. If you look at my GitHub stuff, it just brings everything together, because nobody seems to like the PVS console. So I wrote something that just brought all the information together. So all the target devices, what groups they're in, but cross-referencing to AD and VMware and the disks, and to show you what's what target device is booted off the wrong machine, and it just brings it all together in one of those out-grid views that we saw earlier. And again, don't run on production servers, run on a jump box. So the get broker ones are the main ones we use for getting information. Again, what have I got? Well, again, I could actually come back over here, get command, get dash broker, and I've just done control space. Yeah, I could tab through them individually, or I can just see them all here, and I can actually then cursor through them. So again, just it's not difficult to use compared with writing stuff in VBS or CMD or Kix, whatever your former preferred scripting environment was. We can stop sessions. So my first ever CVAD script was one worked around an issue where sessions wouldn't terminate, wouldn't disconnect. Wouldn't reset after being disconnected for the time you'd set in the Citrix policy. So again, scheduled task running every 15 minutes. Get broker session where the disconnected time was greater than whatever it was at the time, 90 minutes. Of course, I made that parameter so that script could be reused by different companies. And they just terminate them, write a log, and that worked around the problem. Whether you want automatic, you write your own reboot scripts, or I have a script for a customer where there's a specific spooler problem. If that spooler problem happens, then that machine can't be used again for printing. Applications hang until it's rebooted. So I've got a script that checks, looks in the event log. If it sees that problem, puts it in maintenance mode. Next time the script runs, sees there's any users on that box. If there are, it leaves it. If not, it will take it out. It will reboot it and then take it out of maintenance mode. So it puts it back in the pool. So again, all automated fixing, and a lot of PVS stuff as well for making your own target devices, automating all that side of things. I helped some fellow CTPs with automation for building and tearing down environments. Much easier than doing it by hand. There's a certain investment up front, but again, there's a lot of frameworks out there, scripts that will help you. Down to the last 30 seconds, I knew I wouldn't get through the whole slide deck. That's typically me. This is probably a 2-hour deck, if anything else. But so there will be a recording available, and I'll push the slides out later today. And you'll find there's a lot of links either to individual scripts or good resources on the internet. So again, I've got a script I know a lot of people use, which just once or twice a day, perhaps first thing in the morning, and then maybe at lunchtime, but maybe just email you a summary of how many machines you've got available, how many are in maintenance mode, how many sessions you've got, most sessions on a machine in case your load balancing isn't working, is there any low disk space, that sort of side of things. Just mentioned about my script for checking. Printing isn't the biggest problem in Citrix environments ever, both in design and running. I know I've run out of time, so I'm just going to finish this slide. Don't panic. Director data demo I did want to do. Because anything you can get in Director, you can get through PowerShell via the OData REST interface. Just released a script on controller for getting all the session failures, either within the last number of days or for a specific user, but it gives a lot more information than you actually get out of Director. Again, I haven't got time to talk about these. And whatever else you do. Yeah, okay. So I've run out of time. Hope that was useful, particularly for those of you who haven't. Again, this is where we do it face-to-face. I'd have show of hands who's using PowerShell. But the thing is, it's easy to use. Don't worry about it. Plenty of help out there. Once you get over the basics, it's very easy to use. And you'll wonder why you didn't before. Okay, well, hopefully that was okay, and I wasn't speaking to myself on mute for the last 30 minutes.
No, you weren't. Thank you for the session. Okay.
Phew.
Really awesome. And I personally know that you can do way better than this, and that time was actually the issue. We have a break right now. I wanted to interrupt you to say that you can take some more minutes out of the break, but I think that those minutes were not representing the cherries on top. So everyone, this is a break. Thank you, Guy, for this PowerShell session. And if you want, you can ping Guy after the meeting on Twitter. Get his email address. You can ask sorts of questions, and most probably for the right price, he can also respond to those. And just joking.
Yeah, I think I didn't say that my typical day job is a mixture of Citrix troubleshooting, PowerShell scripting for various vendors, like Controller, Flexible IT, and so on, and fixing AppSense things as well for my sins.
Okay, so we have a 15-minute break, if I'm not wrong, and then we have a session. Which is around
Victor, I have a small question. How do I learn PowerShell overnight without using it?
You need a bigger bird.
What was the question, sorry?
How do I learn PowerShell overnight without using it?
You need something plugged into your brain, I guess. There are some good books out there. There's PowerShell in a Month of Lunches, for instance. But the best way to get used to it is just sit in a PowerShell prompt, not a CMD prompt, and just look at some scripts that you think might be useful to you and understand how they work. Like I said, back in 1980, that's how I started programming. My dad used to bring a computer home from work, a Commodore PET, which you're probably all too young to remember, which had lots of games written in BASIC. So I used to play them for a while. Then I started looking at them, understanding how they worked, and thought, oh, what if I change this? What if I change that? And then started writing my own. So the hardest thing for PowerShell, I think, is having a use case. So it's like, I must learn PowerShell. But for a long time, I put off learning PowerShell. I've only been doing PowerShell for 6 years, even though it's been around for twice that, simply because when I wanted to do something, it was a case of, I need to do it now. So I need to do it in VBS or CMD. I haven't got the time to learn PowerShell. So you've got to be disciplined with yourself and say, no, it is going to take me a little bit longer, but I'm determined to do this in PowerShell. The first thing to do is to say, well, who else has already done this in PowerShell? Yep, here's a script. Okay, let me look at it. Let me understand it. Let me check that it's not going to destroy my environment or my lab. And then change it a little bit.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guy.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna go sleep on it.
I do a lot of PowerShell when I should be sleeping. I was up till 1 o'clock this morning doing stuff. But...
Actually, Kosti, I think you would need that technology from the Matrix, in order to, Yeah,
I was looking for something more related to that one.
Now I know Kung Fu. Now I know PowerShell.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you've got to decide what you want to learn. Somebody was talking about Docker or containers or something yesterday on Twitter. And it's like, what do I know about those? Nothing. Am I worried? No, because I don't need to know about them yet, if I ever need to learn about them at all. I think the problem in the IT world is there's a lot of new technologies all the time, new products, new technologies, and you look at it and think, oh, I'm being left behind. I don't know it. But that's most people are like that. And do you actually need to know that? No. So I got worried for a while that there were all these new things, and there was me, a dinosaur, 25 years of Citrix, and I was being left behind. But I'm not sure to work. I pick up some new stuff. I pick up new products, but I don't worry that I don't know this and I don't know that. So don't panic. That's what I would say. Just decide what you need to know. Find out how to get that knowledge, but don't worry that there's somebody's looking at something really sexy and whatever, because you can't know all of the technologies. Are you going to use my digital clock for a countdown timer?
Yeah, because
I was going to suggest that. Yeah. So right-click Run in PowerShell. Yep, there you go. Click on countdown. It's not the greatest of user interfaces. Then that will bring up a box. So in there, type, I don't know, 0010, 00:10, have you got a box up? It's not on screen.
Yeah.
Yes, there you go. So type 00.
Wait a second. It's
colon
5?
10
Sorry.
or 5. Yeah, if you want 5, then then colon 00. It's not the greatest of user interface. I'm not a user interface person. I started my programming life writing on a green screen. Yeah, that should do it. And then click the run. You see the run tick box, bottom left? No. Oh yeah, you can do that. No, bottom left, run. There you go.
Okay. The idea is that I know. So we have a break for anyone, which would require, I don't know, some men's room, coffee break, water, or avocado break. I think this is the time. I need to take a look at the agenda. Yep, and then we should have the session with Yevgeny from Control Up. I'm not sure if he joined already. We have 21 attendees. Yay!
Yeah, you've done well to get this off the ground. Good man. I know what it's like. I haven't. I know I don't have the time to do it, but I know how some of the guys in the UK struggle to get these events going and coordinate everything. So, hats off to you, sir. Well done.
Thank you. I think you have a part of the success coming from you because you accepted from start. You were the first one to accept the invite for.
Well, I don't get paid for these things, but this is all part of giving back to the community.
Exactly.
I enjoy it. I like to help people. It's my nature.
Okay, in this 3 minutes, I will be going for a glass of water, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, I've had to have my window closed, even though it's quite warm here, and my fan off because my fan, you hear it on the microphone, so I'm drenched in sweat here.
Okay, we're back, everyone. We have now Yevgeny Klushin, which is from Control Up, the only vendor which is sponsoring this session today. Hey, Yevgeny, if you can say something nice about yourself before you can start the presenting the deck that you have.
Can I say something not nice about myself?
Probably that would be okay, but best would be nice.
Yeah, got you. Hey guys, great to be here. My name is Yevgeny Klushin from Control Up. I'm the head of the pre-sales in APAC and EMEA for Control Up, and happy to be here to deliver the demo for you guys today. So just guys, just let me know when I can start, and I've got 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
One moment, make co-host, and now you have the power.
Guy, how are you? Guy Leech. I'm going to make you a star during this demo. I'm going to show something that you just did.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. You already had your session, or you're about to go after?
Just finished it, but it's recorded, so you can watch it again at your heart's content. Get a bit of popcorn.
Gotcha. No problem. So, guys, I'm sharing my screen. I need you to stop sharing if you can.
Yep, my bad.
Right. So let's get started. You can see my screen.
I think it's yep.
Wonderful. So, guys, again, very happy to be here. It's my first time in a Romanian user group. I think that not all of you are familiar with ControlUp. Some of you might have heard about us. So I want to start with a really 2-3 minutes introduction of the company and the solution. And then we'll focus on the product itself, some news, and some nice things that you can do with this with us today. So basically, ControlUp grew from the Citrix world. ControlUp was initially a Citrix reseller and integrator in Israel. It was called Smartix at the beginning, and we provided a lot of projects in the world of end-user computing. And from a need of the professional services guys and the engineers, ControlUp became like a side project where to create a utility to monitor and manage the infrastructure in a better way, because those challenges were there 10 years ago, and by the way, still there today if you're not using a proper solution. Today, ControlUp is a huge player in the Citrix world. We've got more than 1,500 customers. We've got an ecosystem of experts like Guy Leech, like Wouter, like Ton de Vrede, Esther Barthel, Sam Legrand. A lot of known CTP people work with us and provide a lot of material for us. So we grew from the community and we work very tightly with the community. And you'll see that in the solution itself, which is actually was tailored for VDI infrastructure. We've got 3 offices. One is in Israel, where I'm located. Of course, not in the office during those times, but there is an office. UK and the US in San Francisco. Regarding customers, so some of the brands, you can see them today. You've got large brands like DSV and Costco in the US, Best Buy, signed recently from the UK, from Guy's country. We've signed the AIB and BlackRock, a huge brand, AT&T, you can see them here. PayPal, etc., etc. And so from 100 seats customers to 100,000 seats customers work with us. And that's regarding that. What we provide, guys, if you see us for the first time, ControlUp is a solution that provides you with monitoring, real-time monitoring, overtime historical analytics, and tools to fix the problems, okay? To remediate them, troubleshoot, and fix problems when they occur. We work on top of any type of infrastructure, whether it's VMware plus Citrix or Microsoft, Nutanix, any traditional on-premises solution or cloud solutions, we can connect to them and provide all of those 3. How we do that? We've got 2 options, 2 ways to work. One is this hybrid cloud infrastructure, where all we need is to connect to your infrastructure. So we have a small console which you put on a VM in your domain or even a laptop, connect to those layers that you've got there going on in your Citrix infrastructure. So we connect to the delivery groups and brokers themselves from the Citrix. We connect to the VDI machines, whether Xenabs and desktop, whatever. We connect to virtual servers that are not just related to the VDI. We will connect to the virtualization layer, no matter what it is, whatever you are running there. Your NetScalers, probably if you are running Citrix, you will run a NetScaler for gateway or load balancing, and we've got a connection to those entities. And physical endpoints as well are supported, so you can, in addition to the virtual infrastructure, you can connect to the physical infrastructure. Now, you will see everything that is going on here in real time, but also all the data is being uploaded to our secure AWS locations an instance in our cloud. So the database is transparent to you. You do not need to allocate any storage, any application servers. All is hosted by us, secure, GDPR compliant, etc. And we've got an historical UI for that as well. Now, for customers that cannot do hybrid cloud or non-cloud at all, like government or finance or insurance maybe, we've got also a more traditional on-premises solution where the solution, the control app solution is exactly the same. You've got the real-time console and the control app insights for historical view, but you will need to install a couple of components on-prem to manage the solution. Okay, so that's, guys, the architecture, and let me move on to the product itself. Now, as I said, the product is divided into two interfaces. We've got this real-time management console, where you see what's going on right now. And in addition to that, everything that goes on here in real time is being uploaded to this UI, which is called Control App Insights, for an overtime overview. Okay, so if you want to see trends, analytics, statistics, etc., you get all of that here in the Control App Insights. We'll get to this UI in around 15 minutes. Now, so when I speak to customers, when I speak mainly to Citrix customers, one of the main or when I worked and provided professional services in my past, the main challenge and the main thing that arises in this introduction calls with customers, and I think you would agree, guys, is the visibility, the unified visibility for decision making. So for example, if I want to look at my users, I will go to the Citrix director. If I want to look at the NetScalers, I will go to analytics or to the ADM, or I just don't go anywhere. I need to guess. If I want to take a look at my virtualization metrics, which of course affect on the users, I will go to the vCenter if I'm using VMware, or Prism if I'm using Nutanix, or ZenCenter. Now, this challenge is solved very easily with Control App by connecting to all the layers, okay, that we talked about, very simply and out of the box. So if I want to connect to my hypervisor, which I usually need, read-only user, let's take VMware, which is the most famous one as an example, will connect to your vCenter and start working and bringing metrics from your hosts. The next data source will be the machines. So again, whether it's a VDI machine like a XenApp or ZenDesktop machine, or any other virtual server or endpoint, we can connect to that. The next will be the actual Citrix stack. So we'll connect to the read-only user to your brokers and delivery groups and provide metrics from the Citrix data from your gateways or load balancers. And the third one, which becomes more and more relevant, is cloud connections. So cloud can be AWS or Azure, or Citrix Cloud becomes more relevant today. So we can bring metrics from those layers. By connecting to that, we'll see in real time, how real time, every 3 seconds. So in a 3 seconds interval, we will see what's going on in those layers. So we can get, first of all, we can get the visibility, but more important, we can start making decisions and start solving problems with this real-time view. So we can see the hosts, the machines, the user sessions, the processes. We can see all the applications. So this is an unprecedented view where you can see a unified visibility of all the applications and the processes that are running in your infrastructure in real time, and all the metrics coming from those layers to show you where the bottlenecks are. Of course, in addition to that, you will get visibility to your storage and your NetScalers, but the important stuff are, of course, here. So if we touch the important part, as this is a Citrix user group, the most painful or maybe annoying part in our lives is the users, right? Whether we've got 40 users or 40,000 users, we can see all of them here, and we can see all the metrics that are coming from those layers. Now, why this is important? Because this kind of finger pointing at each other of where's the problem? Is it a network issue or is it a resources issue? Is solved by the fact that in one unified row, you will see metrics that are speaking about the resources, metrics that are coming from the that are talking about the user experience, like slow logons, like application load times. These became a big hit recently as people are, we are kind of in a work from home era, and it's not going on pretty soon. So latency and the bandwidth availability became super important to see, to monitor, and to track. Other metrics like round trip time, like the locations, are seen here as well. So you can really pinpoint the user experience issues quickly. So the next will be, guys, by the way, I'm looking, you can type questions in the chat, so it can be kind of a more interactive session. So if you have any questions, I will stop 5 minutes before the end and give you some time to ask questions. But if you have anything that rises to your mind, you can write in the Zoom chat, and I'll try to answer immediately. Okay, so that's some housekeeping. Now, besides this visibility, the troubleshooting aspect throughout those infrastructure is very handy and can be easily done in ControlUp. Let me show you a quick example. Let's say you guys are in the morning, you start getting tickets or incidents or phone calls about slowness or sluggishness, and you want to see why. So very clearly, we'll be able to see that using the stress level column. The stress level column in ControlUp is the end result of the troubleshooting process. We see here right away where we've got entities that with problems. So you don't need a big dashboard or a grid or trends to see where the problem is. You can see right away that there is a problem. If you click on that, you will see why. Okay, so the root cause of this stress level in this ESX2 is IOPS. Now let's take a look at that. Let's get to the bottom of this issue. If I'll drill, I will see all the VMs that are running on this host. And here comes the remediation part. So ControlUp is not just a visibility solution. We've got built-in actions, built-in scripts that many of them wrote, the colleague that sits in this call, Guy Leech, for high-level troubleshooting, for remediation, where we can actually solve the problems when we see them, not just look at them. So for example, if I'll drill even further, and here is a very classic Zenap scenario. I've got 3 or it can be 30 user sessions on one machine. One of them is causing an issue. I can see clearly what is the issue. The issue is that he's been running for the IO meter for 39 minutes. And I can chat with the user, or I can shadow a session, get a screenshot, execute some script that are needed, maybe log off the user if I need to, or even drill further to see which processes are running inside of the user session and what do I need to, what process is the one that is causing the problem. And here I can click and start executing the relevant actions and fix the problem. So that's kind of a very common use case for a customer of ControlUp and maybe tier 1 support or tier 2 that goes inside, drills down quickly, gets to the bottom of an issue and start fixing it. If you go back to the user sessions view that we visited a minute ago and focus on a very hot topic today, and that's the user experience. Again, people are more working from home, so they are very sensitive to slowness that can be caused from different reasons, right? It can be a resources issue, it can be network issue that we can troubleshoot very easily with those metrics, but we can also dig inside of the problems. So a common problem in VDI still today will be slow logons. I do still see that in many customers where we see huge numbers like those or even more, and we break down the slow logons into the logon steps, like the group policy, the profile, the desktop load time, and the other interactive sessions steps. But what's going on behind those steps is still a black box for you. So you can maybe see those metrics in the Citrix Director or other tools, but what's going on behind that, it's pretty tough to see. So what we have is built-in scripts that can drill down inside of those layers to show you the real root cause of the problem. So for example, here we can see that 65 seconds, more than a minute was spent on a group policy for this user. So let's click on that and see with one of our famous GPO scripts, what's the root cause of that. So this GPO script will show us which group policies have loaded for this user, how much time they took in seconds, so we can see very easily and clearly which group policy is the problematic one, what we need to go and fix. I can tell you guys from my experience that this script just can save you at least 3 hours of work, and that's if you're a good engineer. So that's pretty handy. And those kind of scripts and actions we've got going on in this scripts actions library. With many of them are for Citrix because they were built, this tool was created for Citrix customers from the beginning. So many of them are for virtualization, for PVS, for MCS, for various troubleshooting use cases. And a recent one that I want to show you, and I'm glad that guy is on the call because he created that last week, is failed connections. Okay, users trying to connect, they are failing to connect, and there can be many reasons why this happens, and we might be able to see that there is a failed connection, but we do not see the reason, and we trying to find the reason, it's a tough task. So what we came up with last week, actually, and let me show you our connection to the Citrix brokers. So as you can see, we can see the delivery groups, focus on them, see the data, we can focus on the brokers. As a nice script that will be able to show you all the failed connections and the reasons why. So if I'll drill to my broker and I'll see this is my Citrix broker, and I'll execute a script. So again, it's a common scenario where you have a user calling you or opening a ticket. Listen, Mr. Whatever, I can't connect. I'm trying to launch my published desktop or my published application and I can't. And then you need to figure out why. So very easily you can right click on your broker and execute a script called failed get Citrix connection failures. You can either type in the username that you're troubleshooting, or you leave it blank and get all the users. You can start, you can do it for, you choose how many days ago you want to go, if the ticket was from a couple of days ago, and execute the script. And what you will get is, for example, I executed for myself. So I had 2 days ago, I had 2 failed connections. And the reason, and you can see the reason why was that this delivery group was in maintenance mode. Okay, so, and if it happens right now, I can easily see that if my my delivery group is in maintenance mode, and go to the delivery group. So let's go and focus on my delivery groups and get it out of disable the enable or disable maintenance mode if it's on, if it's still on. So you saw how in, let's say, virtually 30 seconds, I got to the root cause. I went to the the issue and fixed the issue, and everything is in one solution. So again, it's not miracles, because you can do this kind of stuff maybe in different consoles, but I just saving you hours or even tens of minutes of work to solve problems, to solve tickets, and to make sure that your VDI infrastructure is up and running. Guy, are you with us? Are you still with us?
Yep,
No,
only eyes and ears.
Sorry?
Only eyes and ears.
Wait. Guy, are you with us?
I just wanted to make sure that I'm doing justice by script and not showing any stupid stuff.
Maybe he cannot unmute.
Never mind. So let's go on further, guys. Of course, there is much more to show here, but you know, I just wanted to show you the major parts. Everything that is going on here is being connected to a mechanism called triggers, which is divided into two use cases. One is basically sending you an alert. You don't need to look at the console all day long. You can get an alert or notification when something goes wrong, right? So you can, so if you've got a failed connection, or if you have a slow logon, or all of the stuff that I just showed you, or high IOPS on a machine, before that you can be proactive, and before that happens, you can get a notification, or by email, or by mobile push notification, or write an event somewhere, or even integrate with your ticketing system. Recently, we integrated with ServiceNow, and you know, be notified before the tickets will start opening, before the users will start complaining that you've got something that is going wrong on the infrastructure. And why this is powerful? Because ControlUp is a real-time solution where the data here is in a 3 seconds interval, so you'll get it pretty quickly. The second and very important thing that this mechanism can do is take those scripts that you saw, those action scripts, and automate them. So we can execute an action following up on a problem. So for example, if we've got a machine, a delivery group in maintenance mode, and we want to disable maintenance mode when stuff like that happens, we can do that automatically. Okay, or if we've got an unregistered VDA, we can restart it and make it available for usage. And many other automation scenarios that can even save you more time on manual tasks. So that's that mechanism. And as I said, everything that goes on here in real time is being uploaded either on-prem, or if you're using our cloud solution, to this interface that is called ControlUp Insights. Here we've got historical analytics, trends, dashboards, and recommendations about your infrastructure from a high-level view.
Yeah, good afternoon.
So,
Yeah.
Sorry. So what we see here is reports from a user's point of view, your infrastructure, your NetScaler's historical data, your applications or published applications, and high-level dashboards like this one that show you the entire infrastructure. So for example, if we look at the Top Insights report, this dashboard doesn't show you what's going on, shows you only the problems, only the anomalies, and the bad behavior in the bottlenecks that are out there. For example, applications with abnormal resources consumption, okay, or users with slow logons or high CPU consumption. So basically, any of those problems will bubble up here, and you'll be able to start taking care of them. Another super important report that became very popular among our users is this user sessions activity. Again, people are working from home, went to work from, you know, on VDI, and as you can see, we can see exactly when the user have logged in, was his user experience, when he logged off, what was his actual work like, okay? Some customers like it, some customers don't like it. This is why it's not a default. So we can actually show the work of a user, whether he was actually active, what's the percentage of activity in the session, and what was the percentage of idle time in the session. So we can actually see if our remote working environment is effective, right? We can show it per user, and we can actually show it per all of our users. Okay, we can see a trend of this activity among other reports. And that's basically some, you know, some examples of our historical reporting. So guys, with that, we'll leave you. I left 5 minutes for questions. So if you've got any of them, feel free either to, you know, to ask them or to write it in the chat, and I'll answer everything.
Hey, this is Andre Yanku speaking. So, Evgeny, I have 2 questions for you. So how is ControlUp licensed? Is it per user basis? Is it per session, per server? And the second part of that question is, Do you guys have perpetual and non-perpetual licensing, as in we can pay monthly or we can buy, perpetual licenses, or just one versus the other?
Okay, thank you, Andre, for the question. So answer number one, how the product is being licensed. The product is being licensed very similar to Citrix, peak concurrent user sessions, okay? So if a customer has 1,000 user sessions in peak, this is concurrent. This is the amount of control app licenses that you will need to buy. That's the only thing we count. We do not count the number of machines. We do not count the hosts. We count only the user sessions. That's how the licensing work. And for your question, second questions, we have both subscription licensing, okay, where you pay yearly, okay, or monthly, whatever. You prefer, of course, yearly. And we've got also perpetual offering as well. Of course, like any other SaaS company, and like any other companies today, we prefer the subscription type, but we do have perpetual offering as well.
Okay, sounds good. And another question, if we wanted to at least try and demo this for our, so I'm part of Entity Data, and we run our, hosted cloud environment where this could be useful, right, to kind of look at things. If we want to try and set up a demo or anything like that, do we reach out to you? Do we go directly?
So so guys, I'm writing my email in the chat. I think my contacts are also in the Citrix user group. So let me just find the Zoom. Oh, just a second. The Zoom chat.
I can share your email address with Andre if that's okay.
Yeah, that's.
I can leverage that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm also writing my controlup.com. It's in the chat, so you've got my email in the chat. You can reach out to me, no problem. By the way, controlup. Yeah, by the way, your kind of use case, the MSP or the hosting, is a very, very common use case for us. We've got quite a lot of them around Europe. So I think it will be interesting for us to talk. Parentic control app. I'm even sharing with you a case study of one of our MSPs that wrote a case study about how their experience with control app. But yeah, just reach out to me or no problem, and we'll set up a demo or a trial and whatever you need.
Sounds good. And the last question I had, how does this control app work in a multi-tenant environment? So basically, our cloud environment has many customers. Is it support that, or do we have to build an instance for
No. It's supported. Again, as I said, MSP is a very common use case for us. We support multi-tenancy. As you see here, we've got an AD connections kind of button here. So we can connect to so each folder here can be a separate customer, okay? So you can focus on a customer, on a tenant here, or on all of your tenants together. So that's in regards to that. So yeah, it's fully supported. For your question.
Yep, it does. Thank you very much.
So I'm doing something even better. The largest MSP or hosting provider in Europe is called Visolit, and they're working with the solution. Through the chat, you will see a YouTube video where Visolit are telling their story with control app, and this is the largest hosting provider in Europe. And I think my time is done.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
It was a pleasure to.
One last thing, and sorry for taking 30 seconds more. Just go to controlup.com if you want a free trial. Just download from here. Very simple. And thank you for hosting us, guys.
Thank you for joining, Evgeny. It was a pleasure to have you here. I know about Control App for a lot of time, and it was really interesting to me to find out the insights, and that's something which I suppose a lot of people would be interested in. So thank you very much for sharing all that information, and we're waiting for you guys to come also in some future sessions and maybe present CloudBees, and that's another product that you have.
ScoutBees, I think
Yeah.
you mean.
Mm-hmm. CloudBees.
Sure. ScoutBees.
CloudBees. Oh, my bad. Ah, CloudBees is another product, I think.
No, maybe you mix two things.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
Maybe
with
it's a new
bees.
one that is going to get launched.
So now we have a session with two CTA colleagues. Actually, just one of them, I think it's a CTA, and Ruud would apply for that. It's Bas Stapelbroek and Ruud Hund, and I hope I pronounced well your names.
You did a good job.
And the session is about Citrix SD-WAN and how that goes around the modern workplace. And I think it's a very interesting session for a lot of people. Now I will try to make hopefully Bas presenter.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you could make Ruud a co-host too,
yep.
You can go through my slides. So that would come in handy. And
okay,
I'll
the stage is yours.
Start sharing the presentation. Okay, Ruud, are you here?
Yeah.
There's Ruud. Well, approve. Ruud has controls. So, hi all. Welcome to our presentation, Citrix SD-WAN and the modern workspace. And as an introduction, indeed, I am the CTA one and Ruud, hopefully the one to be. Yes, my name is Bas Stapelbroek. I'm a solution architect at CUGC, a Belgian company. Citrix technology advocate. You can find me on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and I have a small blog. I'm 35 years old, living in the eastern part of the Netherlands. Yeah, and proud member of CUGC, where we do all kinds of cool research stuff. And I'll let Ruud introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm Ruud Hund. I also work at CUGC as a network solutions architect. Been doing that for probably most of my IT life, so over 10 years now that I'm within networking. So yeah, started out with just the basic stuff and later moving on to Citrix NetScalers then. I think it was even version 8 or 9 when it started. And yeah, doing the whole portfolio of networking for Citrix, including SD-WAN.
Okay, let's kick it off. Now, if you talk about the evolution of the workspace, the past and the present, our workspace had some big changes the last few years. First, of course, was virtualization, what made a big impact in our work. And the whole workspace shifted from the good old data center towards everywhere. And that's visible in the next slide. And this is a big contrast towards the networking part of this. And we seem to do networking like dinosaurs. And if you talk about evolution, 1 or 2 decades ago, every bit and byte lived within the data center. We only had some Excel sheets, Word documents, Outlook, and perhaps some music downloaded from Napster, and some very small social networking. But that is nothing compared to nowadays. And that's where not only our company data lives within the cloud, but even a part of our social life. And for some people, their whole social life. And those are big, bad, and bandwidth hungry apps. And they're used on a daily basis. So think of a company with 1,000 people in the main and a branch office. How many do you think have Spotify running, syncing apps toward OneDrive, personal photos to Dropbox, or posts on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, or in best case, work-related, work with Salesforce, Workday, Office 365. Any clue how many documents are synced on a daily basis? And we sometimes think that our traditional networking is not keeping up with this pace of the workspace. And our data center is essentially becoming one big funnel where all data has to go through. So this is where Ruud kicks in.
Yeah, so we'll start off with the concept of SD-WAN. I'm not sure how many people of you are already familiar with the whole concept, but just to give you a quick overview of the concept, is this picture or diagram is basically how we have built networks for the past, I would say 20, 30 years. Probably this was brand new when Guy just got into IT, so this model is really old. And that's something we're still using today. Now, basically it means that all traffic that's coming from remote locations, we expect it to go to our data center or head office. And after that, it will get filtered, cleaned, and sent out to the internet. Or nowadays, maybe through Azure, through an express route. And basically, yeah, really old. Now, with the new way that we need to do things within networking, because yeah, the workspace has moved on really a lot compared to the network, is that we're not going to use a single MPLS network, but we are going to use an overlay network. And within Citrix, that's a virtual path. And basically what we are doing is within the virtual path, we expose all things relevant to the client via the most optimal way. And should be able to go forward. Yeah. Now, virtual path, what does it consist of? It consists basically of any connection type that you want. Where in the past with the old networking, you had to choose what kind of methods you would be using. With Citrix SD-WAN, you are able to use just any form of connectivity. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as the type will match on both sides. And by doing that, we're also directly going to take all the metrics of that connectivity form that we are using. We are going to take all the metrics around latency, jitter, how fast paths go, if the line is up and running or there's a degradation. And we're doing that both ways. And with that data, we are able to route traffic the most optimal way. And one nice feature is that within normal networking, if you send data out through a device, the network will expect the return data to come exactly the same way. With Citrix SD-WAN, we're able to route it in different ways. So we can maybe send packets from a client over the MPLS to a data center and maybe send the return data back through the internet path. And basically, this is what you get, is that every remote location, because we do intelligent routing, has direct access to whatever resource that they want. So it can be go to Azure, can be to a SaaS app, it can be internet, or the data that still resides within your data center, you can also access that. So it's the most optimal way of routing that you can have for your network. And this is really important, especially with Microsoft. It's also one of their guiding principles to say that Office 365 traffic, for example, you have to get it onto the internet and to their front door the fastest way as possible to minimize latency. And Bas will talk a little bit more in detail about that later, because we have a lot of ground to cover and a small amount of time. So we'll go a little bit into the technology stack on what's going on. We'll start off with deployment methods. You can use Citrix SD-WAN in multiple deployment architecture methods. We'll go a little bit into the route distribution, which basically means how the network knows where to send your traffic through. And as always, when using new technologies, you get new challenges that we need to overcome. And especially with SD-WAN being so old in network, you have a lot of challenges sometimes. So we'll start off with the deployment methods, and there are three. The first one is edge mode, and this is high-level overview where the PE would be your provider endpoint, and which are connected directly to your SD-WAN solution, and behind that will reside your branch networks. In this case, it's important to know that if you deploy it in such a method, is that for every branch location or remote location, you have to reconfigure your network so that the SD-WAN solution is your default gateway. Otherwise, no traffic will pass through. Second is inline mode. Now, here we still have our provider endpoints, but you also see a CE, which is referred to as the customer endpoint, which normally is layer 3 switching or router, sitting in between the SD-WAN and the clients. Now, in this deployment method, the Citrix SD-WAN is deployed transparent, which means that it does not need to be configured as the default gateway for traffic to be processed by it, because it's inline and all traffic sending from CE to a PE is already routed through it. And the way how that works is that physically within the SD-WAN solution, you have a data plane. Every networking equipment has 2 or 3 planes. And the data plane is basically the plane that will handle all your switching and switching data. But physically what will happen in an inline mode is that all the traffic is sent through the data plane, and Citrix can then pick up the traffic and do all the neat stuff that it's doing with optimizing, encrypting, etc., and making it ready to be sent out over the virtual path. Now, a cool feature with inline mode deployments is that something will happen in maybe the near or far future, that your SD-WAN solution will fall out, maybe due to a power failure or an update that went wrong. It can always happen. Now, if that happens, the data plane is not available anymore, and data is not able to flow through it anymore. Now, with Citrix, you have a fill-to-wire option, which basically means that it has a physical relay that will close, and basically traffic will just flow directly onto your MPLS network if you're still using it, and just be treated in the old days. So there is no impact on the user for availability, only the performance, it will be degraded. And lastly, we have the virtual inline mode, which basically means that for traffic to pass through the SD-WAN solution, you need to use some form of dynamic routing within your core network to say, okay, if this is happening, because basically it's a matter of if and else statements within the network. So if it matches, send it to the SD-WAN, and the SD-WAN will then send it out onto the virtual path. And else, it will just treat the traffic as normal. Now, the edge in the inline mode is normally what we would use at remote locations, because it's not really suitable to use it in your data center, mainly because also the data center will house your master control node called the MCN. And both the edge and inline, all traffic will flow through the solution, which also means that you will need to take that into account when you are licensing the bandwidth, because Citrix SD-WAN is licensed based on the throughput that you are using. Now, a small disadvantage is with the edge mode is that you will need to reconfigure your network, whereas with inline mode you can just place it in between your router and the ISP router, and you're ready to go. And both you can consolidate multiple devices normally, especially in the past we would only see maybe a small router at remote locations. Now with security being hard, we are putting in firewall appliances, IDS nodes, etc. Which with the edge and inline mode we can consolidate into one. And the virtual inline mode, that's mostly, I only see it in data centers for the MCNs, because that way we can define what kind of traffic that we want to flow through the SD-WAN solution, because also data is coming from your data center onto the internet that doesn't need to flow through your SD-WAN network. So it saves you a little bit on bandwidth for the licensing method. and you can decide if you are using field-to-wire. You can also still make use of your existing MPLS network. But that does mean that you need to configure some kind of OSPF or BGP for that to work. Please, if there are any questions, just put them in the chat, and Bas hopefully will monitor them. But that's basically the deployment methods that you have. Now, this is the most controversial topic, route distribution. And why is that? Within networks, you have multiple ways to distribute routes. So routes basically make sure that clients or network equipment know where to send data to, that they are being processed. And this is basically, the preference is mostly based upon opinions, because if you look at the SD-WAN solution, we support OSPF, BGP, and PBR. Where PBR, I would really stress it out, only use it when the whole world is ending and no other options, because it's really a quick and dirty way to get it working. So maybe good for a POC if you're doing that, but don't start using it within production networks, because, well, I tried it once and you get lost in translation really fast. So always stick with a dynamic routing protocol like OSPF or BGP. And both have some advantages versus disadvantages. And it basically choose the type that fits your current infrastructure the best. There isn't really one way or one or the other that's better. Mostly in general, OSPF is a little bit easier for people to understand compared to BGP, but just choose one of those two. You can't go wrong with it. There's a small caveat in it, especially in larger networks. You need to keep your routing tables under control. Because, for example, if we're giving every branch or remote location an internet breakout, that route will be propagated throughout the network. So the device will say, I have an internet route. Now, if you have 10, that means that you have 10 different internet routes. So you always have to filter either on your network device or on Citrix SD-WAN, preferably, I would say, on both ends, but control which routes are being propagated within your network so that you are always in control. Now, a little bit one of the biggest challenges, I would say, is that when you start using SD-WAN, we're moving from a network where it's expected that all data is going to a central point versus the SD-WAN network where we are basically decentralizing everything and just directly putting traffic where it needs to be, is that in our old data centers, we have this whole security stack, everybody's connecting to it, we clean all the traffic and send it out. That's not possible anymore the moment you start using SD-WAN. That's really where you need to start rethinking this whole model. Now, luckily, I think last month, Citrix has released the advanced edition, where the basic version of Citrix SD-WAN has a layer 4 firewall, meaning you can say from point A to point B, block this protocol or this application. Now, as of last month with the advanced edition, we're able to do IPS, IDS, antivirus. We can also integrate with third-party vendors, like, for example, Palo Alto, in case you need maybe firewalling based on user data. So you put this whole security stack that we would normally have within our data centers, that you're putting it out to the edge. Now, we didn't show it, but one of the concerns people have is like, okay, if we have 10 sites, how are we going to manage all these kind of policies? Citrix provides either an on-premises controller or a cloud controller called SD-WAN Orchestrator, where you just centrally manage everything from one space. So that's why we are able to put this whole security stack at all the different remote sites without sacrificing any of the security features that we would have in the old model. Now, Bas takes it off from here.
Yes, let me unmute myself. Well, to pick up regarding the modern workspace and the current time we live in, I think we've all noticed a massive amount of Zoom, Teams, GoToMeetings the last few months. And of course, within perspective, this probably is the best way to continue our daily job or even seeing family or friends. So I don't know about you guys, but who didn't have a virtual drink, bingo, quiz with your family or friends? I at least am guilty. Well, in the case of Teams, if you have a one-on-one meeting, like on the left side of your screen, Teams searches for the most optimal media path between the endpoints using the Interactive Connectivity Establishment Protocol called ICE. And that is basically the same that Skype does. And so, if possible, on a one-on-one call, media established peer-to-peer, so it can flow freely, it's optimal, etc., etc., best path. But if there is a proxy or firewall in between, or there is no other connectivity, it flows through Azure. So in the case that there's a firewall in between, all traffic flows from user A to user B through Azure. So that could heavily impact your bandwidth towards the cloud, internet line, Azure, etc., etc. And in the case that you have a multiple user meeting, all traffic, media by ICE and the chat service flows through Azure. So that could heavily impact your branch office performance because all traffic is backhauled through your data center. And that is something we don't want to. And like we said before, we do think that the whole COVID thing is far from over. And even if it's over next year, will our office still will be the same? Or I do think this will be a new kind of working. So in the case of Teams and other internet traffic, we have three options that we'll explain. And option one is route all internet traffic through your local breakout. So make no difference between Teams or other web traffic, and the traffic that's destined for your data center will still be sent through your MPLS, or in a SD-WAN case, your virtual path. So it's basic routing, and this is indeed something that most vendors can do and not very special about Citrix SD-WAN. But Citrix SD-WAN does have something special that we will be discussing later on in this presentation. So option two, and that will be route specific traffic through your local breakout and backhaul the rest of your traffic through your data center. So SD-WAN enables you to do deep packet inspection on the SD-WAN, on the branch side, and it enables you to recognize traffic. SD-WAN, for example, checks for header information, domain name system, DNS, or even certificates. And if, in this case, Office or Teams traffic is recognized, it will send it through your local breakout. So we have the option to create multiple apps or custom apps. So we can create on the SD-WAN, within the SD-WAN configuration, our own custom app, and we can add our own application if it isn't already recognized by Citrix SD-WAN, and that's the following option. There are multiple applications recognized by Citrix SD-WAN. I think there are around 4,500 apps already that are recognized. So you basically have a drop-down list where you can select an application that needs to be recognized and routed directly through your local breakout. And we can create application groups, and so that you can collect multiple applications and treat them basically in the same way. And of course, because it's Citrix, we also recognize HTX traffic. So you're able to, you have several classes so that we can prioritize ICA traffic and treat them in different ways. So we have a class real-time, interactive, bulk transfer, or background. And with multi-stream ICA, we can treat all streams differently. And like we mentioned in the previous slide, Citrix SD-WAN has something extra to offer with Office. That is that Citrix SD-WAN on your local breakout will send the Office traffic towards your nearest Office 365 service point. And once that traffic reaches our front door, a Microsoft front door, also known as service point, traffic is able to flow through the backbone of Azure towards the right destination. So in the case of us, when we're in the Netherlands and you need an Azure data center in the APAC region, the front door will be Amsterdam. It flows through the backbone and pops out in the APAC. And this minimizes latency, so it is noticeable for the user, and it should benefit his overall user experience. And the SD-WAN does it by downloading on a daily basis the endpoint signatures, which are stored on a database on the branch office, and Citrix basically monitors performance metrics like jitter loss, and updates that in the database on the SD-WAN, and sends you the best way, and it gives you the best the service point. And the last case, that if there is no local breakout possible, it could happen that you, for example, only have a virtual path of a MPLS, and where you can put a virtual path overlay. And yeah, Citrix SD-WAN still creates the best possible path towards your data center, because all traffic is UDP and packet-based, and it monitors per packet. So in all cases, it should be best practice to let SD-WAN do your quality of service, and basically remove it from your MPLS line. And I think it's out of the box. The SD-WAN has 3 classes that will be real time, like VoIP, Teams, or Skype, and you have an interactive path that would be video, and you have bulk traffic, and that's basically on best effort, where you have no guarantees. So if we talk about the real world experience, that's something where GoEUC comes in handy. We're both member of GoEUC, where we do some performance researches. And in this case, we created a branch office near Arnhem, where I live, in the eastern part of the Netherlands. And we created a data center in Groningen, where Ruud lives. And that distance is about 150 kilometers. And we've created a virtual path of 11 megabytes per second. And in both cases, where we tested the local breakout function from my house, the connection towards the internet is also 11 megabytes per second. After that, we created 3 new Azure tenants in the following regions. That will be Western Europe, EMEA. The data center is located in Amsterdam. We have the North America region. We found out that that data center resides in Canada East. And we have the APAC region, and that data center is in Southeast Asia. And what we did is we've uploaded several files to OneDrive for 10 users, and those files were from 1 KB to 1 gigabyte. And we've automated that with PowerShell, so that the files were downloaded user after user. So for every user, we downloaded the 1 KB file to 1 gigabyte file, and then we repeated that for the next 9 users. PowerShell wrote it in a log file for us, and we repeated that for every tenant. So we did it for 10 users in EMEA, 10 users in North America, and 10 users in the APAC region. And we did that for through our data center. So we backhauled it through our data center, and we did that through our local breakout. And it's good to know that even when it went through our data center, it is done by overlay network. So it's already UDP and best path. So I even think that it's performed better than a standard VPN or MPLS line.
Yeah, for the backhaul, we used like the golden ticket network. There weren't any delaying components in between.
No, so both are most optimal paths that you could create. And if we talk about the results, then the bars show the difference in percentage, and the baseline is the path through the data center route. So it's backhauled. So that is 100%. And the bars show the difference when we downloaded the files through a local breakout. So we didn't backhaul it, but we downloaded directly through a local breakout, and we see a 10 to 15% shorter download time. And one exception is made with the 1 megabyte file. It is kind of strange. We couldn't really find out why, but those
Yeah,
were
most likely it had to do with the MTU size, so the maximum packet size that can contain data.
Yeah, and what we see is, and it didn't really make a difference, but even with 11 megabytes per second, that download, that didn't make too much of a difference. It would be, we were talking about seconds, but regarding the 1 gigabyte file, 50% shorter download time means minutes. So that should be noticeable for the end user. I don't know if there are any questions about that part, but it's highly noticeable that the download time shortened using SD-WAN local breakout. But the most important part, perhaps, is the next slide, and it's the round trip time. So the time that traffic takes to get to point A and back. And what we've noticed is that the baseline, this backhaul through a data center, would be around 30 milliseconds. And when we've routed it through a local breakout, it was 6 milliseconds. So that decreased with almost 80% within all our data centers. So EMEA, North America, and APAC. So that really made a difference because round trip time should be noticeable within real-time applications like VoIP or your ICA sessions. So that really made a big difference between backhauling all traffic. And that was basically the result of our investigation. And if you want to read more about it, go check us out on GoEC, where all the data can be found and our setup, the way how we test it. And I think if we are we're around on schedule, and if there are no other questions, then let's sum it up with this quote from Albert Einstein. And I think that will be it for today. So thank you for having us, Victor. It was a great pleasure.
Thank you for joining, guys. Really appreciate it. And I personally learned some new stuff around the SD-WAN, which I personally consider very important from a virtual apps and desktops perspective, but also from a guy which is in IT for a lot of time. And I do hope that some of the issues, if not all the issues that are currently the guys which are managing SD-WAN are facing, and the guys which are managing MPLS links will be solved with future versions of it. Thank you very much. Now we have Mr. James Rankin on the stage with his wonderful llama.
Good luck.
Let me make you a presenter. If I realize how to do that in a fast way. Participants, okay. James, where are you? here you go. You're now a co-host.
So I should be able to share my
Yes.
screen. Let me make sure I get the right screen. Would be the first bit to do. Let's try sharing that one. Let's minimize that, and let me find.
I hope your llama is not speeding us.
No, the office that I'm in is currently a complete tip, so I had to come up with some random background to go on there. Can you see my presentation there? Okay.
I personally see only your webcam.
Yeah, why am I not showing that? Let's go back.
If we would compare this inability of sharing, it's like trying to connect the cables in your laptop. Okay, now we see your screen.
Right, I haven't got my video. If I restart my video, is the screen still on that?
It's working. We can see you and your presentation.
Excellent. Right. Thank you for having me along to this virtual user group, which is, I think this is the inaugural Romanian one, so it's good to be in at the start. I mean, I know with the UK user group how long it can take to get things off the ground. So, as I said, thank you for having me along. I am a current Citrix CTP. I also blog quite a bit at, the links are down there, to james-rankin.com, where you can see all of my latest ramblings. I have a YouTube channel that's linked there as well, which is, I'm trying to sort of get to pick up a bit these days, and I'm only 300 subscribers from monetization, so please come along and subscribe if you want. I'm trying to do a lot more videos on there now. I do occasionally write for other publications as well, so if you follow me on Twitter, I generally link to all of my stuff, but most of the things I put is up there on my blog. And obviously today I'm going to talk about Citrix Cloud, mainly going to talk about the deployment that I've done myself over the last couple of years, and basically just what I think of it, what's good, what's bad, and what's terrible. So if I just flip my slides on, my journey in Citrix Cloud kind of started, I was told to build a solution for a number of offshore developers, and they wanted to segregate these developers, really. That was the main goal of it originally. They were considered to be very high risk. We wanted to keep them inside an environment that was not only, kind of somewhere they couldn't exfiltrate data from, but also somewhere that if, malware got onto their virtual desktop or something like that, that it would be sort of limited in its blast radius, so it wouldn't get onto production systems and infect that. So obviously, with security pretty high on the priority list and dealing with a lot of offshore users, mainly, I always look to provide a full desktop in these environments. It's much easier. It keeps the user in that kind of little bubble out there. It doesn't encourage them to integrate with anything on their client. Now, a lot of these users were, they worked for third-party companies, so they had a managed device that was managed by their IT department, but also some of them were bring your own device users. So security was very high on the list, so we went with a full published desktop. So the idea was, though, that because of our kind of cloud principles that we had, we were told that all the workers had to sit in AWS, in Amazon Web Services, because this was the customer's strategic cloud platform for applications. And these Citrix workers were to be treated by the cloud guys as application servers, which sounds a bit odd, really, and, was going to give us a few early challenges. Now, mainly with AWS, one of the main challenges that we had, particularly 2 years ago, when we were starting to think about how we were going to architect this, was that certain aspects of Citrix Cloud Service weren't available in AWS at the time. For instance, app layering and WEM weren't at that point available there. We didn't know that we were going to want to use those aspects of the services, but it kind of showed us that how AWS was going to give us a bit of a, it will be a bit more difficult to get some things done in there. Now, these users, as well as needing to be segregated, they also needed some production access as well. So we made the decision then that, really the only way was to provide them with 2 distinct desktops. They would have a standalone one-to-one VDI, which we were going to do on Server 2016 because of the Windows 10 cost in AWS. It was going to be Server 2016 with the server VDI switch. That would be their development desktop. And they would also have a hosted shared desktop as well, another Server 2016 instance, but a shared desktop instead, which allowed them access to things like email and Skype and things like that. Now, at the time, I know that a lot of people would think, well, if you've got to do it all in Amazon, why don't you use Amazon Workspaces? At the time of architecting this, Amazon Workspaces was a bit immature, in my opinion, and obviously Windows Virtual Desktop is in Azure, so we couldn't have used it at that point anyway. But even if it was available in AWS, it wasn't even out of tech preview at the time. So Citrix Cloud was really the only one we were sort of going to go for there. And this was mainly, particularly though, even if, you know, we had the option of Amazon Workspaces at the time, that the business had lots of Citrix farms historically, hosted Citrix farms and on-premises Citrix farms. The offshore users were very used to connecting to these, and their IT departments as well were very used to dealing with kind of Citrix-y client problems. So the business familiarity aspect would have pushed us straight down the Citrix Cloud route anyway. It was really a kind of a no-brainer to go the Citrix route for this. So finally, we were also told, you know, you had to provide a great user experience as well as being super secure as well, which is often a difficult thing to balance out. And what I brought along was, I said, I want to maintain a single image there. You know, I've worked in so many environments where they've got hundreds of images, and it just makes me feel ill working in environments like that. And the management overhead is terrible. So there were our kind of requirements. So even though you're in, you know, like a cloud environment, you've still got to go out and do the architecture of that cloud environment. You know, it's not a managed desktop service like Citrix managed desktops. You've still got to go and work out how you're going to get the right design decisions for your authentication and your apps and things like that. And this is kind of what we imagined at that time, what it would look like, and kind of what it does look like now. So we've got our users, you know, contractors, global service providers. We've got a mix of clients, we've got third-party managed devices and unmanaged devices. They all come in via the public internet and hit Citrix Cloud's gateway service at that point. Now, the handoff is done at that point to Azure AD and conditional access. Obviously, being a secure environment, we're using MFA as well. The MFA of choice was Azure MFA. So the authentication is done at that point, and then they move once they're authenticated with the two-factor authentication, into the, you know, hit the proxy server in our AWS cloud environment, where we've got all the infrastructure components set there. We've got the cloud connectors. We're also going to have the workers, a mix of hosted shared desktops and one-to-one VDIs, all running Server 2016. Profile stores sat in AWS as well. Now, also, there were some users that needed access to some other applications we couldn't provision in AWS. So those users would use the hosted shared desktop to then hit other Citrix environments that were internal to the customer or in a hosted environment. So it was also a bit of a bridging solution for some of those users that may need access to other kinds of apps as part of their sort of daily duties. But the main thing was the VDIs were fully segregated for the development work. They did have internet access, but no access to production systems, no access to Office, anything like that. The hosted shared desktops were where they went to do their kind of task worker tasks as well. So that's how, I mean, that's pretty much how it looks today. But, you know, we've got all the plumbing in there within Azure to do all of the authentication and whatnot, and everything else is just sitting out there in AWS with occasional bridges into the customer environment. So one of the first things that I found about Citrix Cloud is obviously you've got to allow access to Citrix Cloud from, you know, from our AWS environment, and also all of our various global service providers. They also had to allow access through their firewalls. Now, these are the list of sort of connections that we have to make. And the problem I've kind of found is you find the things that Citrix Cloud needs to connect to kind of develop a bit over time. And occasionally they develop almost kind of in real time. You may find you're getting some sort of weird error and you see your traffic going somewhere else. And then all of a sudden you notice Citrix have added a new address to the list of stuff that they've got listed for cloud services. I think this experience, to be fair, came along from us being quite an early adopter of Citrix Cloud, and I think it would be fair to say that Citrix haven't done anything like that. You know, they've been pretty good at updating that before you actually see traffic starting to flow that. So maybe a little bit of an unfair commentary to say that it sometimes moves the goalposts in real time. One thing to call out here is, though, you will see obviously in that list, there's a lot of wildcards in there, and when you work in a high security environment like financial services, which is where I'm at the moment, it makes for an interesting conversation to have with security teams when you are talking allowing wildcards out of their environments. I know it's a cloud environment, and by their very nature, for resiliency and things like that, you need to put wildcards in there. But you know, it's just an example of the kind of difficult conversations you will have with the CISOs because of things like this. There's also, you know, a request in there for HTTP port 80 access, which is unauthenticated as well through the firewall to pick up its certificate revocation lists. Again, this is something that's not unique to Citrix Cloud, but again, I have a big fight with my CISO guys to try and get those allowed. They did allow it in the end. So I guess what I'm trying to call out is when you work in a cloud environment and your security team are very used to working in you know, an internal managed environment, that there has to be some flex around that in order to get things working properly. It's just the nature of the beast. Now, I had a lovely diagram that I was about to do here, and then I was told about an hour ago that I couldn't use that diagram because the customer weren't happy that I was kind of like giving away their sort of secrets, which is ridiculous, really, because it had no branding in it or anything like that. But anyway, I had to quickly put together just a quick slide to show how our provision was done. Now, at the start of the project, I had anticipated that we would use MCS to provision and manage the workers. I mean, why wouldn't I really? However, the cloud architecture principles that we were told we had to sort of live by said, A, that every 30 days, all of the Citrix workers had to be destroyed, literally destroyed and recreated every 30 days. That was the rules in cloud for everything, which was okay. That took me a bit by surprise. And also the security policies they had in place meant we couldn't actually hit the Citrix API gateway, which meant we couldn't use MCS at all. So I was kind of thinking, oh Lord, this is a bit odd. And the next thing we were told was, you know, internally this customer did everything via SCCM. And they also told me that there was no way they were putting any SCCM infrastructure into AWS either. It all had to be done as infrastructure as code using things like Jenkins pipelines, Puppet, Chef, Terraform, Packer, all these things that I knew absolutely nothing about. So I had a bit of a funny moment, and I was thinking, how on earth are we going to do this? However, I do have to say that if you get this right, and this usually means that you have to have the skills in your teams for these things, but it is a really, really brilliant way of doing provisioning. We can deploy Citrix workers at an incredible rate. I think the max speed we managed was 1,040 workers per hour that we managed to spit out at one point. That was our maximum speed. You're pretty much only limited by the AWS capacity. So say what happens is, Amazon release a new golden AMI every month, which has all patches put into it. And they do say that this is a joint responsibility, right? You can't rely on Amazon to get all the patches in there. You've got to actually check. But I have to say, we have never had we do a scan afterwards, you know, a Tanium scan to make sure all the patches are there. We've never had to put any other patches in. So essentially, we don't have to do any patching of our servers, which is absolutely fabulous. So the AMI gets added to the pipeline. Terraform creates a new OS image from this. Then we've got Chocolatey that's all scripted. That actually installs evergreen copies of all the core apps. So the idea is we don't have a repository that we have to update all of the time that has our core apps in there. It literally just goes out onto the internet, gets the latest version, and installs them. We've got other scripts running afterwards to deploy non-core apps and other config items, which I'll touch on later. Then does a Tanium scan afterwards, a sys scan for hardening. It's dropped into the hypervisor zone, which is automatically picked up and placed at the machine catalog. Then another script runs and moves it to delivery group, and it's absolutely brilliant. I have to say, we redeploy every single server. Currently, we have about 540 servers active in there, and every one of those is rebuilt in its entirety every 30 days, and nobody complains about it. So we don't have to do any patching. The chances of human error in this provisioning process are greatly reduced. However, they're not gone, because one day somebody accidentally fat-fingered the pipeline and rebuilt the cloud connectors instead of the workers, which was a bit of an unfortunate instance. So it can happen, but it's greatly reduced. What else about this? We used 2 instance types. We used M5 X large for the server VDI, so that's 16 gig and 4 CPUs, if I remember correctly, and M5 2X large for the shared desktop, so 32 gigabytes of RAM and 8 CPUs, I think, in there. But I have to say, if you're going into a Citrix Cloud environment, and I know everybody would just say, well, we'll just use MCS, or even, you know, stand up some other way of doing it. But I found this way of doing it is absolutely excellent. And if I did an Azure deployment today, I would actually see if we could do it in the same way, because I've been singularly impressed by how fast it can scale and how easy it is to rebuild things. We found some malware on a bunch of VDIs the other day, and literally they were just gone in 10 seconds and back about 5 minutes later, and the users are logged back on. The malware was gone. They were all rebuilt. So I'm also going to talk about, you know, we've provisioned the OS and the core apps dead simply. But coming along to sort of the non-standard applications, we had a few more challenges because we couldn't use SCCM, app layering wasn't feasible. If we wanted to do app V, it required full SQL, and there was no app V integration at the time in Citrix Cloud. I was doing another project with Dave Brett at the time, and he introduced me to something I was a bit embarrassed that I didn't know about already, which was the AppV scheduler, which again is absolutely excellent. It's now called AppV NTIX, as you can see there. It's basically just AppV without the infrastructure. You just put all of your packages in a file share, and the agent deploys them to your machines on a schedule. So you don't need streaming servers, you don't need publishing servers, you don't need databases. We already had in this customer lots of AppV packages from a hosted environment that we just lifted and shifted straight in there, so that was dead easy. And we could also found it quite easy to run SCCM packages through the AppV sequencer and create new ones. So it was a bit of a no-brainer for us to use this, and I mean it's excellent because we can now deploy and update applications that are outside of the core in real time. So if we want to deploy an update, we didn't need to do it via a full rebuild and a full redeployment of the pipeline. The only problem that we had was that the security team said, what about sensitive apps that we only want to deploy to certain sets of users? Again, dead easy one to work out. We just combined it with FSLogic's app masking, and we controlled the availability of apps for the user base. I do have, if I play it over here, a quick video of me just showing the scheduler in action if you haven't seen it. So I've got my AppV package share there, and I've got a bunch of pending packages here, and I'm about to grab one and just throw it into the main file share so that it gets automatically deployed to the machine. This is the machine that I'm actually logged onto as a user as well. So I'm just choosing that mremote package there, dropping it in the main deployment share there. And then if I minimize that, go back to my user session on the same machine. If I look for mremote on the start menu, obviously you can see at the minute it's in the package share, but it's not deployed. Now this normally syncs up on a schedule, but I'm just going to quickly use the AppV scheduler agent to do a sort of resync right now, which will then bring the package straight down to the machine. And you can see it's in the list there. And if I switch back to the user session, you should see that it's actually appeared on the top of the start menu there straight away in real time for the user. And obviously if I search for it, it now appears on the start menu as well. So that's how we can apply updates to our non-core applications in real time. You know, we can add and remove them while the users are logged in, deploy updates as fast as we like, just by changing things around in the file share. And when it comes to removing a package, it's pretty simple. You don't actually have to do it from there. You could just remove it from the file share and then resync it, but I've just done it on there for posterity. So take the package back out, throw it back into the pending packages bit in our dev environment, just send a quick resync down there, and you should see back in the user session when it finishes that the app should now have disappeared. In fact, you can see it disappearing there just in real time, and if I search for it, it's gone as well. So I have to say that the AppV scheduler, or AppV NTIX, whatever it's called these days, is an excellent piece of kit. Now we also got here kind of showing how we make up the user session. Mainly I'm just going to call out the bit in the middle, the app masking rules from FSLogix. So on the CVAD host there, we've got the OS, the core apps, lockdown items, and those set of AppV apps delivered by the scheduler. And we're just using the FSLogix app masking rules there in the middle to say to a user whether they get access to that application or not. So we've got obviously a financial services institution, a lot of a lot of sensitive applications that people shouldn't have access to. So we use the app masking rules to cover that up. Also, an interesting thing to notice about FSLogic's app masking rules is that it's also very, very handy for locking down things like PowerShell and command prompts and things like that as well in the registry editor. Most people use AppLocker to do this or WEM, but I've found using FSLogix to do it is just as effective and probably a bit easier in my opinion. So we used FSLogix to sort of, broaden the scope of what we were doing with the AppV scheduler sat on top there. Now, as we're talking FSLogix, let's have a quick word about user profiles, because I think we did have a lot of problems with user profiles originally. We originally used Citrix UPM, but I think it's shown its age a bit now. We've got lots of security tools. We had lots of problems with that. We had overlength file paths, PSTs, not mounting logon issues. So we switched across to FSLogic's profile containers, and it fixed all of those issues pretty much straight away. So I think, it is in a Citrix Cloud environment, or any Citrix environment really at the minute, I would always go FSLogix for the profile management. One of the things that we had in UPM was the template profile feature. We recreated that using the FSLogix redirection rules, which was another sort of big win because we didn't want to lose that sort of capability. However, we haven't got rid of UPM entirely because it's recently got a kind of fallback feature now, which helps you do multi-server concurrency with FSLogix. Normally, you couldn't have oops, my phone's ringing. You couldn't have two separate desktop sessions using FSLogix profile container. It wouldn't be able to merge those together. However, if you use this UPM fallback feature, it sort of falls back on UPM and then merges that back into the VHD at the end. So we are using UPM still, just as a sort of backup to FSLogix, because we've got some users who operate in the production and the pre-production environment. So that lets them merge their settings across that. But yeah, use FSLogix where possible. If you do have the need to do multiple desktops at once, then you can use UPM to do that. But file-based profile management, I think, has kind of had its day. So what's some of the things to call out about Citrix Cloud Service? Very important thing is not having to manage all of that crap that you're used to managing, like databases and storefront and ADC and things like that is great. You can concentrate on your applications and your user experience. POP's points of presence in the early days, they were an annoyance, especially for some of our users out in Asia Pacific. They saw very high round trip times and latency. And it looked like they were being routed through European points of presence. However, they have expanded that now. That is better. It did take some time to do. Now, obviously, maintaining workspace app versions is a pain in Citrix Cloud because you don't have anything like EPA in the NetScaler in the gateway service. There is a tech preview now for a thing called the Global App Configuration Service, which looks promising, which is pushing it back to workspace. So essentially, as when a user comes and logs onto your cloud environment, workspace is kind of ordered to do some sort of config items. So we're looking forward to previewing that. No Citrix Cloud presentation will be complete without somebody being horrible to Cloud Studio. Cloud Studio was the worst thing about Citrix Cloud in its early days. Citrix went first to market and they basically just packaged up an instance of Studio, and it was an embarrassment at first. It would tell you when machines were shutting down. It didn't remember any settings. It was slow. It crashed all the time. And Citrix have to own that. They took far too long to start addressing that. Web Studio is much better. It's not particularly fast, excuse me, but compared to the original Cloud Studio, it is lightning quick. But they still haven't got everything in there. They've only just added the policies node in there, so there's still stuff that needs to be put in there. Citrix have been far too slow to address this. I would say it was terrible, and it was the worst thing about Citrix Cloud originally. It was absolutely awful. Autoscale came along sort of halfway through our deployment, which again was something we should have had access to much earlier. The documentation of it was terrible initially, and it was very difficult to work out particular sort of queries about it. It's now improved somewhat, but again, it's something that Citrix need to be addressing a lot better. Admins have lots of questions about autoscale. We had instances where machines were getting powered down by accident because we didn't understand how it was working, and it needs to be much better documented. Because we can't use MCS, we have to use tags for billing purposes. Citrix have said they've got customers that have gone up to 250 tags. However, we have gone way past that now, and I'm not sure how well that's going to scale. So again, Citrix need to be, expanding the use cases of things like this and doing more testing, because I don't want to find the whole thing falls over when we go past 500 tags or something like that. Policies, again, give us a lot of historical problems. Sometimes they would disappear. They would be replaced by GUIDs. I would have to recreate them. I would suggest use AD to manage your policies rather than putting them in the FMA if you can, because your AD is going to be backed up, whereas you're at the mercy of the vagaries of Citrix Cloud if you do it in there. If you're going to do them inside there, which we are still doing, unfortunately, at the minute, back them up. I think Shane O'Neill's got some good scripts for backing up policies. There's other little niggly things, like you can't add an AD group to Citrix Cloud admins. You can only add users, which is annoying because I've had to add 100 users in there for break glass accounts in case the IDP goes down. Again, there's things like they need to expand workspace a bit, put some messaging capabilities in and things like that. So there are some things about it that were really, really sucky. They are slowly improving, but I think Citrix need to become more proactive with this, especially if cloud is, first on for them, which I think it is becoming now. I think the CVAD on-premises service is becoming sort of secondary for them. So they need to step that up quite a lot. Now, Citrix Cloud obviously isn't immune to the intrinsic dangers of cloud computing, like code spaces, who basically went out of business when somebody nuked all their Amazon data. There have been some issues we have had. Outages have normally been resolved quickly. Citrix have got an email update service, and don't do what I did and subscribe to the emails via a Citrix Cloud desktop, because obviously you won't get the emails when Citrix Cloud goes down. We didn't really observe anything cloud-specific, any user-based issues. One gripe I do have is that Citrix take far too long to give root cause analysis when there is an outage, and sometimes we don't even get one, which again is something they need to do better. However, you need to look at the whole environment. We lost Microsoft MFA twice for nearly 36 hours, the setting time, and that affected us quite badly because obviously people couldn't log in. So we're now considering putting some resiliency into the MFA services as well. So be aware that it's not just about making sure that Citrix clouds them. Citrix also says some funny and kind of stupid things when you talk to them about it. I was in a meeting with them recently, and they suggested that we deploy on-premises NetScalers in case the gateway service went down, which made me laugh, because I said, Microsoft don't tell me to deploy on-premises Exchange in case Office 365 goes down. They provide a decent service. So they're not helping themselves a bit by making remarks like that. So if there's anybody from Citrix out there, don't say silly things like that to the customers. It really doesn't sell too well. So we delivered this for about 500 users originally, and we were really happy with everything. We had a clean provisioning and deployment process. We had a bridge to on-premises and hosted services. And then something happened. I think you can all guess what that was. And all of a sudden, we were told, oh, can you get 10,000 users on that platform? And I was like, I guess we can try. So I was quite pleased that we had such a clean provisioning process, because I thought we could ramp up quite effectively. And as I said, we managed to deploy over 500 servers in half an hour at one point.
Don't tell me you were the guys which consumed the EMEA cloud, public cloud.
Quite possibly. Yeah, I'm probably all that Teams traffic is a combination of students and us, I think. All of that uptick, because everybody started using Teams after that as well, which was, again, very interesting. Mm-hmm. But security obviously had to be stepped up. So Citrix, another message to you, please, can you put app protection into access control? I don't know why it's taking you so long to do that. Really, really, really. My CISO guys are all over me about that. Cut and paste policies actually in Citrix are really good now, so we could do all that stuff straight away. We had to suddenly provide USB access for YubiKey, which we managed to do actually quite well, even though YubiKeys are horrible things. There were other little holes that suddenly popped up. For instance, the HTML5 receiver has a capability to download files straight into your session, which you can turn off via a policy, so make sure you do things like that. But obviously, when we scaled up like this rather drastically, first of all, we thought about networks and cloud connectors, but we were actually over-provisioned on those to start with, so it wasn't so much of a worry. Storage, however, was. Because we'd gone down the FS Logics route, we had about 15 to 20 gig currently for profiles, and when we looked at the users coming on board, potentially that could have gone up to 40 gigs profiles. So you're talking 7,000 users plus with 40 gig profiles. I think we're looking at something like 300 terabytes, and that's not including any resiliency. So I was really scared when I looked at the storage requirements. We were told we couldn't use Amazon FSx or S3 because cloud architecture hadn't approved them. So that left us only with EBS, which had a maximum capacity of 16 terabytes each. So we didn't have time to test a softs cluster or anything like that. We literally had to make the storage stuff work, and the only solution was to add more EBS volumes. But how were we going to do this? This is where a big shout out to Ryan Revord, who was a fellow CTP, who gave me a script, which I literally went and showed straight away, and everybody was like, wow, that's amazing. And I did actually confess that I didn't write it. I stopped to make myself very clever. So the idea is, if you look at this diagram from the bottom left, virtual app worker boots up and then it invokes a startup script. We use a startup script to deploy the FSLogix rules anyway and do lots of other stuff. And what it does is, in that script, there's a list of paths for all of the file servers with all of these EBS volumes attached to them, which is 2 each. I think we had needed 12 or something like that. And what it does is then orders these paths by the amount of disk space. So the one with the highest amount of available disk space goes first. It then writes this into the registry that FSLogix reads. So when a user logs on, it searches through all of those configured file shares for a pre-existing profile, and if it finds one, it uses one. However, if there's not a profile there, it creates one on the first path in the list, which is the one with the most disk space. So then when the worker reboots at the end, essentially, they're then reordered again. So if you've provisioned a few users in one day and you've filled up one of your file shares, it then reorders and goes down to the next one for the next day. So the only problem you've got is if you provision too many users in a day and they all use loads of disk space and fill up a file share. But we were never going to provision users at that sort of rate. So that script, I actually documented it, and the link is there. Is a really brilliant way of, again, you know, doing things on the fly, and in this kind of cloud ops, DevOps sort of way of doing things, everything being configured by PowerShell. And that script that we use has since grown and grown and grown, and now is, again, another sort of huge single point of failure. If anybody ever breaks that script, we're going to have a serious problem. So we're doing some things around that. Now, the problem was this allowed us to spread the load across different availability zones for the profile shares as well. However, because of the massive amount of storage we were using, I mean, it was 280 terabytes or something like that, we made the decision not to put any resilience in the profiles. We have got it done so that if an availability zone failed, we'd be able to take that load on the other servers currently. However, the users in that availability zone would lose their profiles. However, when you think about it, the cost versus, you know, what problem a user is going to have if they lose their profile, certainly couldn't justify doubling the amount of storage that we're paying for, even though storage is ridiculously cheap in cloud environments. That sort of levels is too much. And I mean, we've got things like OneDrive with known folder move and things like that as well. So the impact to the user should hopefully be quite lessened as well. Another thing quickly to call out is monitoring. At the we didn't really have any monitoring. At the project start, we were looking at control up. We also looked at Citrix Analytics when it came along, which I think was last year sometime. And we kind of went live with just Director in there, which is not ideal, really. So since then, we've been, because the customer is also a big Splunk user, we've been looking at using Uber Agent added to Splunk to create custom dashboards. So we've now got our MFA, our file shares, you know, our Azure AD, and our Citrix stuff all loaded into single dashboards. And I have to give a big thumbs up to Uber Agent, because if you want really customizable monitoring, it is so easy to do, to plug it in. And it helps that we've got some really great Splunk guys as well. Obviously, if I'd had to do it all myself, I might not be telling the same story. But yeah, they've just plugged everything in, and now we've got great monitoring in there. So we're still on the trial version, so we probably will be making a purchase based around that. So in a kind of a summary about Citrix Cloud, I think it's very important that you adopt cloud principles for a cloud solution. Really, I have to confess to being really impressed with all this infrastructure as code provisioning, and it certainly made me look at things like PVS and MCS in a totally different way. And as I said, we are thinking about maybe moving to Azure to get away from AWS strategically for the user workloads, and I would definitely do it again. The only reason I can think of for using MCS right now would be to get access to user personalization layers, so users could install their own software on their VDIs. If there was some way to do that without MCS or PVS, then I would go all in with the infrastructure as code, the Terraform, the Packer, and all that Jenkins pipeline stuff that I really don't know enough about, and I keep asking the guys to teach me. But they're such an excellent bunch of guys around this stuff, guys and gals actually, I should say. They do a brilliant job around it. I can't stress enough that Citrix need to do something about Cloud Studio. Get Web Studio out there, please. Cloud Studios, frankly, it's an embarrassment. It's a joke. It stinks the place out, and it's horrible, horrible to use. Like I said, put your policies in AD or back them up. FS Logics you can now use with UPM for a great solution for multi-server concurrency. FS Logics gives you so much. It basically security tools that scan files on access and that just stream past FS Logics and things like that. You get the Teams stuff, you get the OneDrive stuff as well. It's pretty much a prerequisite now, I think. Citrix need to get their finger out and give us more security features. I'm getting my sort of ears bent every day by security because they're so concerned about the bring your own device, and rightly they should be. It's financial services, they have to be. The communication about outages, again, could be better. As I said, the RCA often arrives 2 weeks later and not really very particularly detailed, so that's, again, something I don't find great. App vScheduler, or whatever it's called now, is awesome. The community is awesome because Ryan totally saved my bacon with that script. I think Citrix Cloud is actually pretty good, really, at the stage it's at now. If you were asking me this a year and a half ago, I would have been absolutely full of hell, and I would have been, there's nothing good about it at all. It was truly awful. They have improved it. They've had to do it on the fly because they went first to market. Once it got past the teething issues, it is pretty good. A lot of our users are now using the workspace as a central contact point. We're going to put cloud connectors into our on-premises farms as well. And so, we are going to adopt that pretty widely. So it has been very successful in that respect. But I think it's just worth mentioning as well as sort of a final note is that Citrix and Microsoft have kind of, they've had sort of a really kind of symbiotic sort of history, particularly for Citrix, really. And they're always like, there's always been like RDSH is going to kill Citrix, and then they didn't, and Citrix just developed all their stuff, and then now WVD's come along. Oh, that's going to kill Citrix off, but really, is it? And now Microsoft are back in bed with Citrix, I guess, and they're pushing Workspace as the way to access this, which I think is really good because I think Citrix have taken it on board that they need to provide more value add again. And I'm not allowed to talk about this, but they've got some great features coming up that I think will be a big value add for their cloud services. I just wish they'd get them out faster, to be perfectly honest. Things like that workspace app configuration and stuff like that look really good. So I think maybe, Microsoft just want to sell Azure credits at the end of the day. And if Citrix is the way to get into Windows Virtual Desktop and multi-user Windows 10, then so be it. It might even be a position for an acquisition. So Microsoft get that ready-made management plan for Windows Virtual Desktop. But I am quite pleased to see that they have kind of like having a bit of a love in again, because that kind of validates the way that we did this originally, for Citrix, because it's familiar for the business. People are used to it. It gives us all those management features and a lot of security features as well on top. And it's interesting to note that Citrix are kind of almost saying now they are a bit of a security focused company, which is good, although they need to sort of get their own house in order and stop being hacked and stuff like that as well. Obviously we present that. So I seem to have gone a bit over my time, but hopefully that was a bit of an interesting view of a project that I've done there and give you a bit of a taste of what should await you should you decide to go into Citrix Cloud and use it in your own environments.
Thanks, James. Really interesting to find out that there are also some other techies around the world which considers Citrix extremely valuable for their customers. And it wasn't like that at the beginning. We also struggled some time back. We're seeing progress, but it's slower than we would accept. And compared to other vendors, they still have a lot of work to do. I wouldn't say it's a full-blown cloud native product from the interface at least, no. But it's gonna be there.
I have to confess, when I first saw Web Studio, I was surprised it looked like the old Studio. I thought it was going to look a bit like, the Azure blades that they do and things like that. I thought that was what it would look like. Yeah, but as I say, even the web studio looks like the old published app. It just isn't a published app. At least it's not betraying that it's a published app like the old one did. The old one was terrible, really.
Thank you for joining us. It was great to have you here. And it was a pleasure for me to give you more time to finish the presentation. Until we actually close the recording and end the meeting, I have a couple of things to do, and one of them is the raffle. So we have 3 prizes, one coming from ControlUp, and the other one, and the other 2 are coming from CUGC. We have a couple of, so one would be the shaky camera thing, which I forgot how it's named. So I have a couple of names. Let me share my screen now. Screen 2. Let's see. So we have the wheelofnames.com. And I have a couple of attendees here. By the way, for the first event, just considering that we have 31 people registering, we have 26 people which attended, which I think the report is great. Now I'm spinning the wheel and we have a winner. It's William. I will contact William in order to see, to get his email address and contact address and so on, because we need to ship something. Okay. Is that Nick? Sorry, it's Nick.
No, it was not Nick.
No?
Nope. This is Nick and I didn't say anything.
It's William.
Is that my mate Will?
One moment, let's do it again. It was Nick. Let's see, is Andre? Yeah, first time it was Nick, by the way. It's the winner which is in here. The second it's Andre.
Oh, the winner is Nick?
Yes, the winner was Nick. Unless unless the win spin for 2 times.
No, at the end of the spin, it slows down so much so that you kind of chosen the guy before, so that's why you have this pop-up.
Okay. Yeah, so the pop-up is the real one. Sorry.
So the winner.
But then we have William, which actually won something. Yeah. So thank you guys. We have 3 winners. It's William Southern, then Andrea Postoy and Nick Stanescu. I will contact you guys. I don't have the contacts for William, but I will ping him. I don't think it would be an issue to contact him.
I actually used to work with Will, so I've probably got an address for him somewhere. He wins everything. He won at Bry Forum as well.
Oh, well, you know, they were lucky when they were born. Thank you guys. It was awesome to have you here, and stay safe.